Hey my watchers, welcome. Today we are gonna see. What if Harry Potter was befriended with KAGOME loved her? Join Patreon for early access exclusive content of Super Op stories. Also contents that's too far for YouTube. You will get 400 content there, please do check that too. Please subscribe this channel, because definitely I will try my best to provide a valuable content for you all. Also check the description to support the original author for this beautiful creation. Over 550 years ago in the Warring States era in Japan, a legendary priestess by the name of Midoriko protected her land from many demons and monsters. She was able to defeat her enemies by extracting the soul from their very body. She believed that everyone and everything had a soul. But the remaining demons of her land joined together to form one giant monster to defeat Midoriko once and for all. The two battled non-stop for 7 days and 7 nights, and with the last of her strength she drew out the soul from the giant demon. But in doing so she also drew out her own soul, combining the two. The two souls soon crystallized into a powerful jewel called the Shurkan no Tama, or Jewel of 4 Souls. The Jewel of 4 Souls had the ability to increase one's power tenfold. But when used for evil or a selfish reason it would corrupt the user's heart. So the village of the demon exterminators that protected the jewel did their best to stop and even kill the demons that came after it. But soon the many attacks became a burden on the exterminators. So the jewel was given to another priestess who would be given the duty of purifying it and also protecting it. Many demons came after the priestess to get the jewel, but she easily shot them with her arrow. But soon a half-demon came for the jewel so that he could be a full demon. But the priestess never killed the Hanyu. Instead she fell in love with him. At the same time the priestess was watching over a spider brigade who was burned very badly everywhere and was no longer able to move. But when he found out about the love that the half-demon and his caretaker had for each other, he grew very jealous. So he called forth many demons and exchanged his body and soul for a better, stronger body. But on his new body he still had one burn mark on his back in the shape of a spider. With his new body he aimed to steal the Shurkan jewel. He called himself Naraku. But the priestess and the half-demon agreed to use the Jewel of 4 Souls to turn the half-demon into a full human. They agreed upon a time and a place where they were to meet with the jewel. On their scheduled day, new and improved spider brigade impersonated the half-demon and severely hurt the priestess. Stealing the Shurkan no Tama, he carefully placed it where the Hanyu would steal it. When the half-demon did steal it, the priestess had caught up to him, and with the rest of her strength she pinned him to a tree where he would lay sealed forever. The two believed they had betrayed each other. 50 years later, the Miko's reincarnation appeared in the village with the Shurkan jewel in her possession. With her powers she was able to free the half-demon from the tree. But soon she accidentally shot and broke the Shurkan jewel with an arrow. The two agreed to work together to find all of the pieces and to restore the jewel once again and to destroy the evil spider brigade that tricked the two lovers into killing each other. Along the way they met a perverted monk that had been cursed by Naraku. He had a wind tunnel in his right hand that could suck up anything and everything without a trace. They also met one of the few remaining demon exterminators. She had her whole family killed by Naraku. And last but not least, a young fox demon. He had his parents killed by 2 other demons. The group traveled on and completed the jewel. But they were never able to defeat Naraku. The Miko had eventually fallen in love with the Hanyu. But he only rejected her and then tried to kill her when he tried to take the jewel from her. Forced back to her own village where no one could reach her, the rest of the group drifted apart. No one was ever heard of or seen again. Well, that's a crappy ending, Harry muttered to himself. The boy who lived ruffled his hair and began once again to scribble words onto a piece of parchment that lay before him. He was currently stuck writing a summer term paper that was due in Professor Binz's class. They were currently studying Japanese history. It was very interesting and all since it had demons and such, but they always had sad endings. He continued to scribble until he heard quick and heavy footsteps pounding their way up the stairs towards his room. Shoot! Harry mentally kicked himself for doing his school work while the Dursleys were still awake. Suddenly the door slammed open. Boy! What in the blazes are you still doing awake? The sound of his uncle's booming voice echoed throughout the room. Nothing, Uncle Vernon. I was just finished up some school work. Harry decided he might as well tell the truth. He was already getting yelled at. Get in bed now. If you ever do want to go back, I suggest you put that rubbish away and go to sleep. Harry quickly put his things away as his uncle stomped out of his room. He mentally kicked himself again and then turned out his dresser light. Someone was in a bad mood. He grumbled as he closed his eyes and drifted off into a dreamless sleep. Will she be able to complete the task that was given to her long ago? The stars touch everyone's heart. It was a rainy, muggy day and lightning flashed across the sky. A single figure sat inside behind a window, watching the storm die down. The figure slowly got up and walked up the stairs and climbed into a soft, warm bed. "Kagome?" whispered a little boy. "Yes, Suda," answered Kagome. "Can you tell me the truth, about what happened in the feudal era?" "Well, it all started as we finished the battle with Naraku. We almost defeated him, but I couldn't finish him off. In books it says we defeated him even if we didn't. I had the whole jewel now. I knew I couldn't give it to Inuyasha for him to become a full demon, and he knew it too. So he decided to try and take it by force. First, it was just name-calling to try and hurt my pride. But then it got physical. He started to slash out at me and try to steal the jewel. Then it got worse. Kikyo showed up. She asked if Inuyasha would get her soul back for her, and he hurriedly agreed. That's when I decided to run to the well. I quickly grabbed my backpack and headed that way. Inuyasha was hot on my heels, along with Kikyo. I dodged in and out of trees to try and shake them, but to no avail. I couldn't. I had no choice but to fight them. Inuyasha attacked first. He made a mad dash at me and caught my shoulder. I notched an arrow and shot it towards him. But Kikyo did the same and our arrows clashed together. Inuyasha ran to his Kikyo to make sure she was okay. I took that opportunity to get closer to the well. As I saw the well in sight, I tried to run faster but was halted by Inuyasha's attack. As I lay on the ground, I noticed the purple rosary hanging around his neck. I remembered the words he hated so much and said them one final time. With a sit boy, I dived into the well as he slammed face first into the ground. With minor cuts and bruises and one large gash in my shoulder, I sat at the bottom of the well thinking about what just happened. And that's about the whole story. Thanks for telling me the truth, sis. I can't believe my ex-hero would do something like that, commented Suda. No problem, Squirt, said Kagome. Hey, don't call me that, said an angry Suda. Just then there came a tap at the window. Kagome turned to look at her window when she saw an owl. Cautiously, she walked over to the window and opened it. With a hoot, the owl landed on her bed. What is an owl doing in your room, Kagome? Asked Suda. I'm not sure, Suda, but look, it has something on its leg, said Kagome. She took the letter off the owl's leg and opened it slowly. The letter read, Miss K. Higurashi. The room at the end of the hall upstairs, Higurashi Shrine. Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry Headmaster Albus Dumbledore. Order of Merlin, First Class, Grand Source. CHF. Warlock, Supreme Mugwump International Confeed. Of Wizards. Dear Miss Higurashi, we are pleased to inform you that you have been accepted at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. We are aware of your journey in the past and would like it if you trained your Miko powers with us. Please find enclosed a list of all necessary books and equipment. You will find the materials in Diagon Alley, England, behind the Leaky Cauldron. Term begins on September 1st. We await your owl by no later than July 31st. Yours sincerely, Minerva McGonagall. Deputy Head Mistress Kagome put the letter down wide-eyed. What does it say, Kagome? Asked Suda. Kagome handed him the letter. Suda quickly read it and looked up to Kagome. Why didn't you tell me you were a witch? Questioned Suda. How was I supposed to know? She replied. She quickly wrote a reply note saying that she would attend. She tied the letter to the owl's leg. And as quickly as it came, the owl left. I'm sure Mom won't mind. Besides, I've been gone for long periods of time before, right? Said Kagome. Right, answered Suda. Good night, sis. Good night, Squirt, replied Kagome. As Suda left, Kagome looked out her window to the sky. The stars winked at her from above. A shooting star flew across the sky. I wish to find happiness at Hogwarts. And maybe some fun too. With that, Kagome lied down and fell asleep. Will she be able to complete the task that was given to her long ago? The stars touch everyone's heart. Kagome walked out of the taxi and looked across the street. There was an old-looking building that no one seemed to notice. It stood tall and dark. She decided to try and go inside. She took a deep breath and walked in. She was greeted by a man named Tom. He asked her if she was interested in a room. She humbly accepted. Tom led her to a small room that was quite florid. It had a wooden floor with wooden walls that were painted purple. The bed was a little shaky but soft nonetheless. We did an extensive remodel because Lucius wouldn't have his son staying in a place that looked so bad, said Tom. Who is Lucius? Asked Kagome. You don't want to know, was her only reply. With that, Tom left Kagome so she could unpack. She quickly unpacked her clothes with care. With that, she walked downstairs. Remembering what the letter said, she walked outside behind the leaky cauldron, only to be greeted by a brick wall. Walking back inside, she went over to Tom. Excuse me, but could you tell me where Diagon Alley is? You must be going to Hogwarts for the first time. Go to the brick wall and tap the bricks. They will open to reveal what you are looking for. Kagome nodded and walked back outside. She found a stick and tapped the bricks with it. Suddenly the bricks began pulling to the side. When the bricks stopped, there was what looked like a shopping strip. Cautiously she stepped onto the street. Let's see. Where should I go first, thought Kagome. I know. I'll need money. Kagome pulled out a key that hung around her neck. She gripped it slightly, and then let it be on her neck again. Mom told me to go to a crooked-looking bank called Gringotts, said Kagome. At the end of the street was the bank she was looking for. She walked inside and got in line. When it was her turn, she handed the goblin her key. The goblin went over to a track and whistled. Then suddenly a cart pulled up. Interesting, thought Kagome. Kagome made her way inside the cart. Once she got in, the cart immediately lurched forward. The cart seemed to know just where it was going as it twisted deeper and deeper underground. Then as fast as it started, the cart stopped. Vault 946, said the small goblin. Key please. Kagome handed him her key and stepped back. The goblin put the key into the keyhole and twisted. The vault slowly opened. Inside were heaps of gold, stacks of silver, and mounds of bronze. She got out her bag and put handfuls of each inside it. With that, she got back inside the cart and was brought back to the surface. First stop, uniform, she said to herself. Hogwarts, dear? Said a woman inside. When Kagome started to speak, she said, got another young boy being fitted now. Madame Malkin stood Kagome on a stool, slipped a black robe over her and started to pin it to the appropriate length. Hello, said the boy, what year are you going into? Kagome looked up at the boy. He had slicked back, blonde hair. He was very pale and had a pointed nose. Sixth, was her reply. I've never seen you before. What house are you in? I don't know. What do you mean you don't know? I mean that I'm new and that I haven't been sorted yet. Oh well, I'm in Slytherin. What house do you think you'll be in? I don't know the houses, so I can't tell you. I just hope there aren't as many mudbloods as last year. What's a mudblood? It's a witch or wizard born from non-witches and wizards. Filthy mudbloods. Filthy mudbloods. Kagome stepped down from the stool, as did the boy. I happen to be one of those mudbloods. You are just like Potter and his gang. Mudbloods and purebloods mixed together. It's just not right. Kagome paid Madame Malkin and left. Kagome then got her school books. After that she went to Ollivander's wand shop. She walked inside the dark shop. Behind the counter was an old man. A Miss Higurashi. I've been expecting you, said the man. You know me? I know everyone that comes and will come into my shop. Which is your wand arm? Kagome held out her right hand. He measured Kagome from shoulder to finger, then wrist to elbow, shoulder to floor, knee to armpit and round his head. After he measured, he said, no two Ollivander wands are the same. And of course you will never get such good results with another wizard's wand. Now he reached up and grabbed several boxes. Try this one. Kagome waved the wand and the windows shattered. No, it's not that one. With that said, he put that wand and several others back on the shelf. Give this one a go. It's unicorn hair and phoenix feather, 10.5 inches. Kagome waved this wand just like the other. Silver and purple sparks flew out of the wand. And the window which was shattered was replaced good as new. That's the one. The wand does choose the wizard after all. That will be 7 galleons. KAGOME paid and left Ollivanders. I hope you only have to get a wand once. She thought, it says I can get a pet. Off to the pet shop then. KAGOME walked inside the pet store and looked around. She spotted many exotic animals but nothing that she liked. Then she spotted an owl. It was black with midnight blue eyes and silver-tipped wings. She picked up the bird and walked over to the register. Are you sure you want this one, miss? We have had many complaints about him, said the store owner. He'll do nicely, she replied. She paid and left. Walking back to the leaky cauldron, she wondered what she would name her new owl. Oh well, I'll have plenty of time to think on the way to Hogwarts. Will she be able to complete the task that was given to her long ago? The stars touch everyone's heart. Harry hurriedly got out of bed. It was about 6 in the morning and Harry was excited to go back to Hogwarts. He would finally be away from the Dursleys. Packing up his belongings and getting dressed and ready, he brought the rest of his belongings downstairs. By the time everything was packed and ready to go, the Dursleys were up. What are you doing up, boy? Came a voice from the stairs. Just getting ready for school, Uncle Vernon, replied Harry. I don't know why I still take you there. Well, take your things to the car. Or I might not take you at all. Yes, Uncle Vernon. With that said, Harry took his belongings out to the car. Harry waited outside for the Dursleys to come out. Meanwhile, he took Hedwig out and let her stretch before she had to be crammed in her cage all day. By the time the Dursleys got out, it was about 10:30. Come on, get in, started Vernon. The sooner we get there, the sooner we get rid of him, indicating Harry. Vernon and Petunia got inside the car along with Harry. Harry braced himself in the car for Dudley to get in. 5 minutes later and one hard push from Vernon, Dudley was safe and situated in the car, along with a very much squashed Harry. When they finally got there, Harry got out of the car as fast as possible. When Vernon got out, he asked, "This is the last year we'll have to take you here, right?" "No, Uncle Vernon. This is my 6th year, not 7th. Well, we'll see if I take you here next year or even pick you up for that matter." Harry walked over near the platform where Ron, Ginny, Hermione, and Mrs. Weasley were waiting. Ginny and Hermione went through the platform first. Then Ron went. Harry was about to go when he was stopped by a mysterious-looking girl. She had raven, black-colored hair that reached to the small of her back and beautiful blue eyes. "Excuse me, but would you happen to know where platform 9 3/4 is?" she asked in a calm, soothing voice. Harry was about to answer when Mrs. Weasley did for him. "You want to get to the platform, dear? Of course you do. Just walk through the barrier located between platforms 9 and 10. Just go with Harry here. And it might be better if you go through at a bit of a run." "Thank you," was her only answer. KAGOME looked at Harry with a questioning look. But Harry gave her a reassuring smile. "Don't worry," he stated, "you'll go through. And I'll be right beside you." "All right," was all she said. Harry nodded at her and she began heading towards the platform. Harry quickly caught up. Before going through, unconsciously, they both shut their eyes. When Harry opened his eyes, the mysterious girl was gone. Wondering what happened to her, he got on the train. From a compartment down the train, the voice of his best friend Ron could be heard. "Harry, I found an empty one. Hermione and I are already inside." Harry made his way towards the compartment. Once he was situated with the others inside, the worst happened. Draco, Crabbe, and Goyle came into the compartment. Well, if it isn't the Potter gang," said a pretentious Draco. "Why don't you leave, Malfoy? You already are cruisin' for a bruisin'," remarked Hermione. "Oh, the mudblood makes a stand," using a muggle expression. "Just leave." "Fine, we will. Come on, boys." Draco, Crabbe, and Goyle left their compartment and went to the one next door. Inside sits KAGOME waiting to arrive at Hogwarts, all alone. Malfoy and his 2 cronies waltzed inside the compartment. KAGOME made no acknowledgement to their entrance. "Well, if it isn't the girl from Madame Malkin's store," was Draco's first remark. KAGOME looked up at him. "You know her?" asked Goyle. "Yeah, I know her. She's the filthy mudblood from Madame Malkin's robes for all occasions." KAGOME clenched her fists and glared up at him. "Don't call me that," was all that she said. "What you mean, mudblood?" As fast as the words came out of his mouth, KAGOME had him pinned against the wall. KAGOME whispered slowly to Draco, "If I ever hear you call me or anyone for that matter a mudblood, I will personally make sure that I arrange your funeral." KAGOME dropped Draco to the floor and opened the door for him to leave. Draco gave a smirk and started to walk out. But over his shoulder he called out, "I'll see you around, mudblood." And without another word was out the door. Will she be able to complete the task that was given to her long ago? The stars touch everyone's heart. Malfoy opened Harry's compartment and smirked. "Look here," Draco started, more filthy. Draco never got to finish his sentence. Before anyone could blink, he was on the floor with a girl on top of him. She pinned him down and started to punch the living daylights out of him. Then she began to speak with every punch. "Don't you ever call me a mudblood again, you creep. I told you I would arrange your funeral, and it's being arranged." By now everyone was out of their compartments watching the fight. All the Slytherins were disgusted, but everyone else was excited and glad that someone finally decided not to take any crap from Draco. While the raven-haired girl continued to beat up Draco, Harry and Hermione were watching intently and Ron was rolling on the ground laughing his head off. Goyle and Crabbe held the girl back long enough for Draco to get up. And in a blink of an eye, Draco, Crabbe, and Goyle ran into her compartment and locked the door. The girl got up and ran to her compartment and started pounding on the door. "Get out of my compartment, you jerks," she screamed. Quickly they opened the compartment door, threw out her things, and closed the door. The girl's things were strewn across the train hallway and she was steaming mad. She started to pick up her things and put them back into her trunk. The other students went back into their compartments except for Harry, Hermione, and Ron, who was still laughing on the ground. Hermione went out and helped her pick up her things. "Thanks," said the mysterious girl. "No problem," said Hermione. "Would you like to sit in our compartment?" "Thanks, I would like that." They walked into Harry's compartment and sat down. Harry looked at the strange girl. Then it suddenly hit him, this was the girl from the platform he helped. "What's your name?" he suddenly asked. "My name is KAGOME Higurashi." "Aren't you the one who helped through the platform?" "Yep, that's me."
I'm Harry Potter.
"And I'm Ron Weasley."
I'm Hermione Granger.
"It's a pleasure to meet you all. I haven't really met anyone else except for you guys and that jerk Malfoy." "No one likes Draco unless you are in Slytherin," commented Ron. "What house are you guys in?" asked KAGOME. "We are all in Gryffindor," said Hermione. "I hope I get Gryffindor too. I don't know what I'd do if I got in a house where I didn't know anyone. But I'd hate to get Slytherin." "The way you pounded Malfoy, you have to get Gryffindor," said Ron. At that said, everyone started laughing. When the laughter died down, Hermione stood up. "Ron, we have to go," Hermione commanded. "Where are you going?" KAGOME questioned. "Ron and I are prefects, so we have to tell the first years to get changed in their robes. We are almost there." Before they closed the compartment, Hermione continued, "You two should get changed, yourselves." And after that the compartment shut and they disappeared from sight. Both Harry and KAGOME pulled out their robes and put them on. Harry sat down on the seat and KAGOME sat across from him. While KAGOME found her shoe laces quite interesting, Harry couldn't help but stare at her. She just appeared out of nowhere, and she is going straight into the 6th year instead of her going into her 1st year, thought Harry. KAGOME looked up from her shoe laces and caught Harry's gaze. He quickly snapped his focus to a different place and blushed. "Why am I blushing?" he wondered. Suddenly the train came to a stop. Hurriedly they got off the train and headed towards the carriages. When they arrived, KAGOME looked at the strange-looking horses pulling the carriage. They were horrifying and had silvery white eyes that had an intense gaze. KAGOME turned to Harry and asked, "What are those things? You mean you can see them?" KAGOME slowly nodded her head. "They are called thestrals. You can only see them if you have seen death." "Oh," replied KAGOME. They climbed inside the carriage and waited for them to advance. But before they left, an red-headed girl came into the carriage along with another girl whose face was covered by an upside-down magazine called The Quibbler. "Can we join you?" "Oh, hello, Harry," said the red-haired girl. "Hello, Ginny. Hello, Luna," said Harry. The girl behind the magazine gave a slight nod. "Guys," Harry started but was interrupted by a cough from Ginny. "I mean, girls, this is KAGOME." "Hello, KAGOME. I'm Ginny and this is Luna," said Ginny. KAGOME gave them a smile and waved. And before they knew it, the carriages were moving. They were silent on the way there. When they got there, KAGOME was astonished by the beautiful castle that stood before her. Before Harry opened his mouth to tell KAGOME where to go, but was interrupted by Professor McGonagall. KAGOME Higurashi? KAGOME nodded. Welcome to Hogwarts, I am Professor McGonagall. You must be sorted with the first years even though you are going into the sixth. KAGOME followed the professor while Harry and the others went inside and sat at the Gryffindor table. Professor McGonagall continued over to the first years and said, Now, for a line and follow me. When they made it into the great hall, KAGOME saw a hat on top of a stool. Suddenly all was in complete silence and the hat began to sing. In times of old, when I was new in Hogwarts barely started, the founders of our noble school thought never to be parted. United by a common goal, they had the selfsame yearning, to make the world's best magic school and pass along their learning. Together we will build and teach. The four good friends decided, and never did they dream that they might someday be divided. For were there such friends anywhere as Slytherin and Gryffindor? Unless it was the second pair of Hufflepuff and Ravenclaw? So how could it have gone wrong? How could such friendships fail? Why, I was there and so can tell the whole sad story tale. Said Slytherin, we'll teach just those whose ancestry is purest. Said Ravenclaw, we'll teach those whose intelligence is surest. Said Gryffindor, we'll teach all those with brave deeds to their name. Said Hufflepuff, I'll teach the lot, and treat them just the same. These differences caused little strife when first they came to light. For each of the four founders had a house in which they might take only those they wanted. So, for instance, Slytherin took only pure-blood wizards of great cunning, just like him, and only those of sharpest mind were taught by Ravenclaw, while the bravest and the boldest went to daring Gryffindor. Good Hufflepuff, she took the rest, and taught them all she knew. Thus the houses and their founders retained friendships firm and true. So Hogwarts worked in harmony for several happy years. But then discord crept among us, feeding on our faults and fears. The houses that, like pillars had once held up our school, now turned upon each other and, divided, sought to rule. And for a while it seemed the school must meet an early end. What with dueling and with fighting and the clash of friend on friend, and at last there came a morning when old Slytherin departed, and though the fighting then died out, he left us quite downhearted. And never since the founders four were whittled down to 3 have the houses been united as they once were meant to be. And now the sorting hat is here and you all know the score. I sort you into houses because that is what I'm for. But this year I'll go further, listen closely to my song. Though condemned I am to split you, still I worry that it's wrong. Though I must fulfill my duty and must quarter every year, still I wonder whether sorting may not bring the end I fear. Oh, know the perils, read the signs, the warning history shows. For our Hogwarts is in danger from external, deadly foes, and we must unite inside her or will crumble from within. I have told you, I have warned you, let the sorting now begin. The whole hall burst into applause as the hat finished its song. It bowed to each of the 4 tables and became still once again. Professor McGonagall walked forward with a long roll of parchment. One by one she called out various names, and the hat called out the house they were placed in, and each table clapped louder than the next. Then she was the last one standing. A man with a long white beard came up to the podium. Welcome to another year of Hogwarts. As most of you know, I am Albus Dumbledore, the headmaster here at Hogwarts. But before we tuck in, we have a very special new student here. Her name is KAGOME Higurashi and must be sorted. But she will be starting in her 6th year. So without any further events, Miss Higurashi, will you please come up here? KAGOME started to walk to the front of the hall. While on her way up there, many students stared at her and started whispering. Before she sat on the stool, Harry gave her a reassuring smile. She placed the sorting hat on her head, and then it began to speak to her in her head. You are quite brave, yes, very brave indeed. But where should I put you? You have the qualities of all houses. Anywhere but Slytherin, whispered KAGOME. There was another that said that, the hat continued, Harry Potter it was. Well then I'd have to say Gryffindor. The people at the table started clapping. But Harry, Ron, and Hermione were clapping the hardest. She went and sat over by Hermione. Dumbledore stood back up and began to speak. Now that the first years are situated, I am glad to say that we have yet another new defense against the dark arts teacher. but he has decided to make himself unknown at the moment. And the Forbidden Forest is still off limits. Now without further delay, tuck in. Suddenly food appeared in front of everyone on the table. KAGOME was in awe while everyone else started eating. Ron then tried to say with food still in his mouth, "Come on now, dig in." "Honestly, Ronald," started Hermione, "don't you have any manners?" "No," was all he said. KAGOME picked up some food and ate her heart out. After everyone had finished eating, Ron and Hermione got up to lead the first years to the fat lady portrait. "All right, you munchkins, this way to the common room," said Ron. "Ron, how many times do I have to tell you, they aren't munchkins? Didn't we go through this last year?" When they got to the portrait, the fat lady asked, "Password?" "Fox Demon," said Hermione. When Hermione said this, KAGOME cast her eyes down to the ground. Harry noticed this and asked, "Is everything okay?" "Yeah," she answered softly. "It just reminded me of someone." They walked into the common room and everyone went in different directions. KAGOME decided to follow Hermione, and she ended up inside the girls' dormitories. She noticed her stuff in front of a bed which she assumed was hers. She got out a pair of pajamas that had stars and moons all over them and put them on. She walked over to the window next to her bed and looked out at the stars. So beautiful, she thought. With that, she lies down on her bed and went off into a calm, dreamless sleep. Will she be able to complete the task that was given to her long ago? The stars touch everyone's heart. KAGOME's eyes fluttered open as the sunlight poured into the girls' dormitories. She got dressed, careful not to wake the others asleep in their four-poster beds. She walked down the stairs to see Hermione sitting in a chair reading Japanese legends. "You're up awfully early," said Hermione. "I could say the same for you." The rest of the morning Hermione read her book while KAGOME just sat and watched everyone else that would go out of the common room. Suddenly, Ron came running out of the boys' dormitories and hid behind Hermione's chair. Then as fast as Ron came out, Harry quickly appeared covered in a slimy green substance that smelled really bad. Hermione and I were soon on the floor, rolling with laughter. "What happened?" I asked between laughs. "Ron sprayed me with Neville's Mimbulus Mimbletonia." "The stink sap," replied Harry. "No kidding. You better get cleaned up, Harry." "Our first class is in an hour," said Hermione. "Who do we have first anyway?" questioned Ron. "It's our favorite teacher." "Snape," replied a sarcastic Harry. "So what's so bad about him?" asked KAGOME. All three of them looked at her like she was crazy. "You mean you don't know yet? Let's just say he's a real git." Harry and Ron went upstairs into the boys' dormitories to get ready for class. Hermione glanced over at KAGOME. "Harry absolutely despises Professor Snape," she said. "Basically all Gryffindors do." "Oh," was all that KAGOME could say. When Harry and Ron came back down, they went down into the Great Hall. Suddenly owls came swooping down into the Great Hall. "Why are owls attacking?" "The owls deliver our mail here. You know, like when you first got your Hogwarts letter," replied Harry. KAGOME nodded at Harry's response. Then Harry's owl Hedwig came and landed with a hoot next to Harry. He pulled off the letter and gave Hedwig a quick pat on the head. "Who's it from?" asked Ron. Harry quickly read the letter and said, "Your mom. She says to be careful." Ron looked at Harry with confusion. "So my mom will write to you and not me?" "No, she says to make sure that you and Hermione stay out of trouble too." "Oh, now that's brilliant. She couldn't write each of us?" "Well, better one owl than three. You never know who might be intercepting owls. And besides, we should get to Professor Snape's class or we're going to be late." The four of them got up and headed towards the door. When KAGOME stopped, "You guys go ahead, I left my bag." "I'll wait for you," said Harry. Ron and Hermione sent him a questioning look. "To make sure you can find the class." Ron and Hermione accepted his answer and left for class. KAGOME then came back with her bag. "Okay, I'm ready." KAGOME flashed him a smile that made Harry blush. "I still don't know why I'm blushing," thought Harry. When they got to the potions room, Professor Snape was waiting at the door. With a smirk he said, well, the famous Harry Potter is late once again along with the new girl. 20 points from Gryffindor. Now get to your seats." Harry leaned over and whispered to KAGOME, "What did I tell you? A real git. Now today we will be making remedy for the hospital wing. Now get started." With a flash of his wand, the ingredient appeared on the board. Harry started his potion with ease when he was interrupted by Malfoy. "Hey Potter, why were you and the mudblood late? What were you two doing?" "That's none of your business, Malfoy." Harry then turned around to see Crabbe putting a whole bottle of some purple liquid. Harry turned and glared at Draco. He began, "I could tell KAGOME what you called her just a minute ago. Teach, that's not necessary. Here, take my potion and I'll take yours." The contents in the cauldrons disappeared, then reappeared in the others' cauldrons. "See, all better then." At the end of class, Harry put a flask of his potion that was glowing emerald green, while Malfoy's was a grayish purple. As Harry started leaving, he heard a crash. When he turned around, his flask and potion were spread out on the floor. When Professor Snape came by, he said, "No marks then today, Potter." Harry was steaming. He went back to his cauldron to get another flask when he saw that it was empty. Hermione came and saw Harry's facial expression. "Oh, Harry, I'm sorry. I thought you were finished again. I really need to stop doing that." "Stop doing what?" Harry turned around to see KAGOME gazing at him. But before Harry could say anything, Hermione started to talk. "Hi, KAGOME. Well, last year I emptied Harry's cauldron when he still needed the potion. I keep thinking he's done when he isn't. Oh, you can use my potion if you like, Harry." "KAGOME, you can't do that, that's cheating." "No, think of it as borrowing." "Come on, Harry." Harry walked behind KAGOME to her cauldron and thought, "I wonder why she is giving me some of her potion. Ron or Hermione never did that for me." KAGOME handed him the flask and smiled at him. Harry blushed and thought, when is the blushing going to end? Will she be able to complete the task that was given to her long ago? The stars touch everyone's heart. KAGOME, Harry, Ron, and Hermione walked towards the defense against the dark arts room and stopped. "Why are we stopped?" asked a curious KAGOME. "Well, first of all, Dumbledore didn't announce who the new Dead teacher was. And usually there is something weird or wrong with them," answered Hermione. "Like what?" "Well, there was that freak Quirrell who had Voldemort on the back of his head that wanted to kill Harry. And that was bloody weird," said Ron. "Then there was Lockhart, who was full of himself and thought he was some big shot," said Hermione. "In the third year, Remus Lupin was our teacher. He's a werewolf and a friend of my father and godfather," said Harry. "The fourth year, which held the Triwizard Tournament, had a weirdo named Mad-Eye Moody, who is an Auror and his eye can see through anything, I think." "But it really wasn't Moody but an imposter," Ron said. "The fifth year, our teacher was Dolores Umbridge, or the High Inquisitor of Hogwarts. She was a real besnitch and was also from the Ministry of Magic," seethed Harry. "But this year could be different, right?" asked KAGOME. "I doubt it," they all answered. When they went in, the entire girls in that class had their eyes were fixed on the teacher. KAGOME studied their new teacher. He had light brown hair pulled back into a ponytail and bluish-green eyes. He turned and grinned at her. Harry saw this and frowned. "Welcome to Defense Against the Dark Arts. For those who don't know me, I'm known as Professor S." All the girls in the class sighed at his name. Harry and Ron rolled their eyes. Hermione was already into their new Dada book, Past and Present Magic, and KAGOME was still studying Professor S. "His aura is familiar," she thought. "Does anyone know of any special types of magic used mainly in Japan?" He glanced over at KAGOME. "No? Well, here's a hint. You were studying them over the summer for Professor Binns a little." Hermione's hand shot in the air. Professor S raised an eyebrow. "Yes, Miss Granger," finished Hermione, "and the answer is a Miko and a monk. We had to write a paper on them." "Yes, now can anyone name a famous Miko?" KAGOME slowly raised her hand. Professor S smiled. "Yes, Miss Higurashi. There was a famous Miko named Midoriko whose soul along with the powerful demons created the Shurkan no Tama." "Very good. 10 points to Gryffindor. Now by next class I want you all to know what the jewel could do." Class is dismissed. Everyone in class started packing up and leaving for lunch. KAGOME stayed behind and went up to Professor S. "How did you know my name, sir?" she asked. "Well, I am surprised you haven't figured out who I am yet. Your aura is very familiar. I do know you are definitely a demon." "Yes, I am a demon and you are a Miko." "How did you know?" "I've known you for longer than you think. Say about 500 years, maybe." By now everyone was out of the classroom, including Harry, Ron, and Hermione. "Here's a hint." He suddenly lurched forward and knocked KAGOME over onto the ground with a hug. "Shippo, it's you. I missed you so much. I missed you too, KAGOME. Now I understand why the password is Fox Demon. Only Dumbledore knows I'm a demon, so you can't tell anyone. I won't. Now let's get some lunch. KAGOME and Shippo walked to the Great Hall and then parted to their separate tables. Ron looked up and saw KAGOME coming back to the table. Well? He asked. This caught Hermione and Harry's attention. Well, what? Why did you stay after? Finished Harry. I just wanted to know how he knew my name. He told me that Dumbledore had mentioned it. They seemed satisfied with her answer and continued eating. I can't believe Shippo is here, was all KAGOME could think. Harry looked up and noticed KAGOME wasn't eating. Is something wrong, KAGOME? Nope. Everything is great. Everything is wonderful since the past. She thought. Will she be able to complete the task that was given to her long ago? The stars touch everyone's heart. He walked down the halls of Hogwarts trying not to disturb the pictures. He rounded the corner to see a cloaked figure. Who are you? He asked. Your worst nightmare, replied the figure. Before he could move, the cloaked figure went behind him and knocked him out. The figure quickly apparat the two of them away, with a blinding green light. Harry quietly walked over to the four-post bed and quietly opened the curtains. He placed the plant on the bed and closed the curtain, leaving a tiny space open. Placing his wand on the plant, he jabbed it hard and shut the curtains. From the inside of the curtains there came a scream. The curtains opened to reveal Ron covered with a stinky green goop. Harry ran downstairs and plopped down on the couch next to KAGOME and couldn't help but smile. What are you smiling about? She asked. Revenge, he answered. There was a crash behind them. When they turned around, they saw a red-faced Ron at the bottom of the stairs covered with goop. I see what you mean. Dumbledore paced around his office. What are we going to do, Albus? I'm not sure, Minerva. I'm just not sure. We'll just have to tell them. You're right. Shall we go then? Harry, KAGOME, Ron, and Hermione sat down at the Gryffindor table. The dishes weren't filled and many of the other students were confused. Hey, what give ow? Be quiet, Ron. Dumbledore is speaking, whispered Hermione. Students, unfortunately our defense against the dark arts teacher has disappeared. For now, all data classes are cancelled. You have that time to do what you like. That is all. What do you think could have happened? KAGOME? KAGOME had a look of horror on her face. Shippo, where are you? She thought. KAGOME, what's wrong? Asked Harry. I have to go. Before anyone could say anything, she was gone.
Ursuk wit erbium.
Asked Ron. Ronald, don't talk with your mouth full. Ron swallowed his food. What's up with her? I don't know, Ron. Think it has to do with the missing Professor S? Asked Harry. Come on, we have to get to Bin's class or we'll be late, said Hermione. In all classes, KAGOME stared out in space, but in deep thought. Are you okay? Where are you? Who kidnapped you? Give me a sign. And with each class, Harry, Ron and Hermione got even more worried and annoyed. KAGOME did her best to avoid everyone from any questions. At lunch, she sat at the end of the table and kind of zoned out. During Transfiguration, Professor McGonagall did not ask KAGOME any sort of question, which made the trio wonder even more. That night, they finally got fed up and went up to her. KAGOME, what is wrong? Why have you been avoiding us? Why didn't Professor McGonagall ask you any questions? They all stared at KAGOME, awaiting any answer. When she whispered, I can't tell you. What do you mean you can't tell us? I thought we were friends? Yelled Harry. I said I can't tell you. What? You avoided us all day when you found Professor's secret identity went missing. Don't you dare call him that, Harry James Potter. He has a name, you know. What, do you have a crush on him or something? What? No, I don't have a crush on him. I think you do. You're just too embarrassed to say anything. Yelled a red-faced Harry. You just don't get it. KAGOME screamed while running upstairs. Fine, run away. But you'll have to face us sooner or later. Screamed Harry. Don't you think you were a little hard on her? Asked Hermione. No, if she can't tell us the truth, then she can't be our friend. He yelled back. Fine, but you don't have to yell at me, she said while going upstairs. Good going, mate, good going, muttered Ron. He went upstairs to the boys' dormitory, leaving Harry alone in the common room. What have I done now? Whispered Harry. When Hermione arrived upstairs, she heard crying. She went over to the bed and pulled back the curtains. There was KAGOME crying all over her bed. Oh, KAGOME, don't be upset with Harry. He gets like that sometimes. You just don't understand. She whispered. KAGOME, you can tell me. I won't tell anyone. Not even Ron or Harry. Do you promise? Hermione nodded. KAGOME checked to make sure no one else was in the girls' dormitory and shut the curtains. Okay. I do have something to tell you. Tomorrow and my mom is yelling at me to go to bed. But I promise to update by next weekend. Whether it is next Saturday or Sunday. But I promise to update. Well, until then. TTFN. Will she be able to complete the task that was given to her long ago? The stars touch everyone's heart. Let me get this straight. Professor S is your son, right? He's a fox demon, right? His real name is Shippo, right? And you're the one from Professor Bin's lesson, right? And you won't tell anyone. Not even Ron or Harry, right? But I still can't believe I know a time-traveling Miko. I guess it's a little weird. Before we get some sleep, I have something to give you. Hermione held out a gold coin that appeared to be a galleon. Why are you giving me money? Asked KAGOME. It's not real. We wanted you to join our group called the DA. It stands for Dumbledore's Army. The secret, so don't go telling anyone. These numbers on the side tells us when our next meeting is. What do we do in the DA club? Well, we formed the group when Umbridge wouldn't teach us defense against the dark arts. This year's first meeting is tomorrow night. Okay. I guess I'll see you in the morning, Hermione. Okay, KAGOME, good night. When Hermione left, KAGOME shut the curtains to her bed and lay down. She walked down the hall as if possessed. Carefully, she opened the door and shut it behind her. The room started spinning, doors were all around her. And just as quickly as it started, it stopped. She turned around. A red X was upon the door. She longed to open the door. It was calling to her. She opened it. She could hear the voices calling to her. Was she really there, or was it a dream? Or was it both? She walked to the black veil that hung in front of her. She was just about to walk through the veil when she ran into something and all the voices stopped. Looking down, she saw a man. He looked horrible. His eyes were open and staring at her. They didn't blink once. That's when she realized his current state. A sword appeared next to her. She picked it up. She could feel it pulsing, telling her what to do. Raising the sword, she slashed the man. He closed his eyes and then opened him. In a flash, they both disappeared. Gone. KAGOME sat up from her bed. The clock beside her read 5:30 a.m. She lay back down in hopes of going back to sleep, but could not. Careful not to wake the others. She slipped out of bed and grabbed her data book and tiptoed downstairs. When she got there, on the couch lay Harry, asleep. She placed her book on the chair and walked over to him. She gently took his glasses off and set them on the table. Harry tilted his head as if looking at KAGOME in his sleep. KAGOME sighed and started to read her book. Harry's eyes slowly opened. He couldn't see anything. It was all blurry. He reached up to rearrange his glasses but found they weren't there. He squinted and saw them on the table. He picked them up and put them on. Everything became clear again. He looked around and saw KAGOME on the chair reading a book. Everything from last night flashed before him. Now Harry wondered if they were even friends anymore. He tried to find the right words to say to her. KAGOME, he started. She looked up from her book and looked at him. He struggled for what to say next. They both sat in silence. Annoyed, KAGOME went back to reading her book. I'm really sorry, KAGOME. You don't have to tell us anything if you don't want to. We all hold secrets. KAGOME smiled behind her book. And? She said. And? Harry thought for a moment. You don't have a crush on Professor S. Friends? Of course. I was just a little upset yesterday. Harry smiled. Did Hermione give you the data coin? Yeah, I can't wait to go. Well, it's in the room of requirement at 7:30. Now I'm gonna go get dressed and ready for classes. Okay. Harry turned around. Yeah? Where's the room of requirement? You mean Hermione didn't tell you? KAGOME shook her head. I'll just take you down there with me tonight. Okay. KAGOME had nothing on her mind all day except the DA meeting that night. That is until she got to care of magical creatures. Today class, Hagrid started, we will be studying demons. KAGOME frowned. She quickly concealed her aura. You never know how old the demons could be. A little green toad-like demon came out. He wore a dark brown haori and light brown hakamas with a dark brown sash. He also wore a tiny black hat. Realization then struck her and she carefully concealed herself behind Harry and Ron. Now class, this is Jaken. He's a demon. Jaken crossed his arms and started muttering about stupid, lowly humans. Jaken is going to ask you to get something for him. Now get in line. KAGOME backed away. She tripped and landed right in front of Hagrid. Now KAGOME, get in line. Don't be shy. That's not the case. KAGOME muttered as she walked to the end of the line. When it was her turn, Jaken had his eyes closed. I want you to. He paused and opened his eyes. You, he screamed. Hi. KAGOME waved. What are you doing here, you filthy wench? Jaken whispered so he wouldn't gain any attention. I happen to go to school here. Now just hurry up and tell me something to do. Jaken smiled. I want you to get out of my sight. KAGOME ran over to where Hermione was currently looking for bugs, so that Jaken could eat lunch. What was that about? That was just a past experience. Both girls started giggling. What do you think they're giggling about? Beats me, Ron. Beats me, replied Harry. KAGOME closed her potions book. She finally finished her potions homework. Sighing, she closed her eyes and leaned back on the couch. Ready to go, KAGOME? KAGOME opened one eye. Harry was waiting by the portrait. Yeah, let's go. Harry led KAGOME upstairs close to Professor Flitwick's room and stopped. He started pacing by the wall. Harry, what are you? A door suddenly appeared. Oh, never mind. Come on, let's go inside. They went inside and what KAGOME saw amazed her. There were cushions, defense books, and a whistle on the shelves. On the wall was a parchment with names written on it. Here. Harry handed her a pen. What's this for? Sign your name. You are officially part of Dumbledore's army. KAGOME signed her name on the bottom of the list. Now, do you want to help me set up the cushions? KAGOME nodded and picked up a bunch and started to lay them out in rows. Then Hermione and Ron arrived. KAGOME and Hermione went to the back of the room, while Ron and Harry stayed up front to wait for everyone else to show up. After a while, a girl came in with black hair pulled up into a ponytail and wore a Ravenclaw prefect badge. She walked over to Harry and started to talk to him. Ron slowly walked back to where Hermione and she were seated. Who is that? KAGOME asked. That's Cho Chang. Harry had the hugest crush on her, answered Ron. What do you mean by had? Well, all she ever talked about was Cedric Diggory, her old boyfriend who was murdered right in front of Harry. So she tries to see what happened. So she's using him? Actually, we aren't sure anymore. KAGOME frowned. The rest of Dumbledore's army showed up and Harry began his teaching lesson. Okay, everyone, I think we should continue practicing the Patronus charm. So let's get started. All around KAGOME heard shouts of Expecto Patronum. She turned to Hermione just in time to see a silver otter come out of her wand. Hermione, why are animals coming out of everyone's wands? Oh, that's right, you don't know this charm yet. All you have to do is think of something happy and say Expecto Patronum. KAGOME thought for a moment and smiled. Expecto Patronum. A giant silver fox made its way through everyone and disappeared into the wall. Everyone turned around to look at her. KAGOME straightened up and grinned. Oops, sorry everyone. When everyone turned back around, KAGOME frowned. What's wrong, KAGOME? Hermione asked worriedly. The fox, KAGOME whispered. Oh, well, what was your happy thought? When I first found Shippo in the Dada classroom. Hermione's mouth formed a tiny O and turned around to practice some more. After Harry spent most of his time near Cho and where she was practicing, he blew the whistle hanging around his neck. All right, everyone, that's a night. Check your coins for the next meeting. KAGOME placed her cloak near the door so it wouldn't get in the way. She started to pick up the cushions and place them back on the shelf. She glanced at the parchment on the wall and smiled as she read her name. Everyone had left except for Harry, Cho, Ron, Hermione, and herself. Come on, guys, let's go. Ron whispered to Ron and KAGOME. I'll be there in a minute, guys, said Harry. The three of them left, leaving Harry and Cho in the room of requirement. As they made their way upstairs, KAGOME remembered that she left her cloak in the room. I'll be right back, guys. I left my cloak in the room of requirement. Don't wait up. Kagome walked towards the door. When she opened the door, she stared at the scene before her. Cho was leaning in towards Harry, just like Kikyo did before Inuyasha were about to kiss. She closed the door before they kissed and started running towards the Gryffindor common room. Why am I caring so much? She asked herself. I promised not to have any emotion close to love since he went to hell with her and betrayed me. She did know that they didn't notice she was there, just like when he left me. Flashback. Inuyasha got up and left Kid's hut. Curious, Kagome followed him into the woods. Inuyasha, said a voice from the shadows. I'm glad you came. Anything for you, Kikyo. She revealed herself from the shadows and quickly went and embraced Inuyasha. You do still remember our plan, right? Of course. Inuyasha removed the left sleeve of Kikyo's Haori and caressed her shoulder. He lowered his head, placed his fangs on her shoulder and bit. Kikyo hadn't even winced. She smiled wickedly. Now do you remember what to do next? Yes, my mate. I will kill her soon. Then you will have your whole soul back. Good. Kagome gasped and ran back to the hut. She quickly packed her bag. Shippo had awakened at this point. Where are you going, Kagome? I'm sorry, Shippo, but I have to leave. With that, Kagome ran out of the hut. But she could have sworn she heard a voice tell her that they would see each other again. As she ran towards the well, she saw a red blur beside her. Inuyasha stopped her right in front of the well. Why are you doing this, Inuyasha? Aren't I your friend? Of course not, and when you're gone then me and Kikyo can go to hell together as mates.
So prepare tu die Wensch.
Inuyasha slashed Kagome across the side. Kagome cried at the pain and that the person she loved was doing this. Inuyasha, sit boy, she screamed. She jumped into the well as he plummeted into the ground. As the lights engulfed her, she vowed never to love again. Never again did she want to be hurt like that again. Dumbledore sat in his chair. We can't keep canceling the defense classes. I agree, Albus, but what can we do? Asked Minerva. Well, hopefully I'm not fired. Albus and Minerva turned towards Dumbledore's door. Emerald eyes shone from the shadows. Albus smiled. Welcome back, Professor Shippo. It's good to be back, Headmaster. Great, the demon is back. Snarled Snape. Shippo growled, you better watch your mouth. Oh, I'm terribly sorry, replied a sarcastic Snape. Shippo growled again. If I find out you've done or even said anything to my mother and her friends, don't worry, Professor S. Nothing has happened to her or her friends, said a calm Dumbledore. Nothing has happened since your disappearance. Shippo smirked. Good. He left without another word. As he left, he could sense her presence running away from the castle. Using his demon speed, he went after her. She ran as far as she could. She shut her eyes and ran harder until she felt force and was thrown to the ground before she could reach the forest. Didn't they tell you that the forbidden forest was forbidden? Come on, Kag, it's in the name. When she opened her eyes, she began to cry. Oh, Shippo, you're back. I missed you so much. It'll be okay, Kag. It'll be okay. Review. Will she be able to complete the task that was given to her long ago? The stars touch everyone's heart. Harry walked up the stairs and to the astronomy tower. He had such a wonderful night. He sent a flying message down to Ron and Hermione, telling them to meet him up here. Ron and Hermione slammed the tower door open and burst into questions. Everything they asked came out in a jumble of words. All right, Ron, you go first, said Harry. I guess my first question is, what happened? Well, Cho and I kissed again like last year. That much we figured out, Harry, replied Hermione. Well, then we decided to start going out, said a blushing Harry. Bloody hell, Harry, and here I never thought you were never going to have a girlfriend. What's that supposed to mean, Ron? Shot Harry with a glare. Well, I thought with your reputation and all. Never mind. Wait, do you hear that? Asked Hermione. Each of them could hear what sounded like light crying. Ron went and looked over the edge. Hey guys, come look at this. Harry looked over the edge. He could barely see two figures outside at the edge of the forbidden forest. When he squinted, he realized it was Kagome and Professor S. What's she doing with him? Maybe it's a misunderstanding, said Hermione. A misunderstanding? You've got to be kidding. Kagome is down there hugging all over our defense against the dark arts teacher. He yelled. Why do you care so much, Harry? You have a girlfriend. Harry blushed at this comment. It was a good question. Why did he care so much? Especially since he got the girl he's had a crush on for 2 years. Why should he care? And yet he did at the same time. The crying had stopped. He looked down again to see Professor S. Carey in a sleeping KAGOME. Harry slid down the wall, arms crossed. I don't see what you're getting worked up about. I'm positive it's not what it looks like. How are you so positive? A girl just knows. Hermione smiled. She had a promise, and she definitely wasn't going to break it. Come on guys, let's get some sleep. I believe we will be having dada classes tomorrow. Hermione left, leaving Harry and Ron. She does have a point, mate. You shouldn't get so worked up. You've got the girl of your dreams. Speaking of dreams, did Dumbledore or Snape say whether you'd be taking a clemency lessons? No, they haven't said anything yet. Well, I think we should get some sleep too, so good night, mate. Ron left, leaving Harry on the astronomy tower. Harry sighed. He wasn't jealous. This was the best night of his life after all. Cho Chang was his girlfriend. So what was there to be jealous of? Sighing again, Harry got up and walked up to the Gryffindor common room and up to the boys' dormitories, and went to sleep. Excellent, everything is going according to plan. He continued to pet Nagini. And what of the fox? The man before him looked up at him. He escaped, my lord, replied a fat servant kneeling on the ground. Wormtail, I told you to make sure that the fox didn't escape. That way Hogwarts would be unprotected after I send Dumbledore away. But my lord, what of Harry Potter? That whelp will be no trouble. Without Dumbledore he is nothing. We can have complete control of Hogwarts and then the whole wizarding world. I will send Nagini after him since you failed to keep hold of him. Yes, my lord. Oh, and Wormtail, yes, my lord? Crucio. Harry awoke to Wormtail's scream of pain. Geez, Ron, you mention a clemency and I start having freaky dreams again, whispered Harry. He got up, got dressed, and went downstairs into the common room. When he got there he saw Ron, Hermione, and KAGOME talking. KAGOME put on a fake smile. Congratulations on getting a girlfriend, Harry, and here I thought you wouldn't. You know, because of your reputation and all. Harry was getting annoyed. What does that have to do with getting a girlfriend? First Ron and now you, geez. But besides that, I have something to tell you. I had the weirdest dream. W was why no W who in it? Asked a stuttering Ron. Yeah, they kept talking about how Wormtail let the fox get away and that he was going to send Nagini, his snake, after him. Hermione and KAGOME looked at each other. Well, maybe we should just go to breakfast and get ready for dada again. Hermione stated. When it was time for defense against the dark arts, there was a note posted on the door. It read, Dear students, please come to the edge of the Forbidden Forest for your lesson. Professor S. Wonder what we'll be studying, said KAGOME. There's only one way to find out. And mudbloods? Sneered Malfoy. You know, Draco, I can always spare a few black eyes. Care for any? Draco smirked as he walked towards the Forbidden Forest. Is that a no or a not right now? KAGOME called. All four of them began to laugh. All right, enough clowning around, you guys. Let's get to class or we'll be late, stated Hermione. Harry, Ron, KAGOME, and Hermione raced down to the Forbidden Forest. When they got there were targets, arrows, and swords scattered in the grass. Professor S smirked as all the girls sighed. All except for KAGOME. She walked over to him and asked, Shippo, what are you plotting? He grinned. You'll see very soon. He gracefully jumped on a stage-like platform set up on the grass. All right, everyone. You will now be learning real defense. What do you mean? Asked Pansy. Well, take a look around. What do you see? Why, you see swords, of course, and some arrows too. We all figured that out, you idiot, said Draco. Shippo silently growled. KAGOME heard this and chuckled. Harry wondered what she was giggling about, but he just shrugged it off. Unlike you, dear Professor Snape, who favors Slytherins, I don't. So, 10 points from Slytherin. All of the Slytherins groaned. Maybe Professor S isn't too bad, Harry thought. Now, Professor S continued, who here has ever handled or actually used a sword or bow and arrow? Harry raised his hand, but was surprised when KAGOME did the same. Shippo grinned. When have you used a sword, Mr. Potter? In my second year here, he replied, when I fought off the basilisk. Very impressive. What about you, Miss Higurashi? Since I live at a shrine, I was taught a few things. Good save, thought Shippo. I would appreciate it if both of you would come up on the stage and grab a sword that you think fits you. KAGOME carefully went through each sword, studying them along the way. Harry, noticing what she was doing, pretended to do the same. But then he asked himself, I can't be trying to impress her, am I? They both decided on swords that were pretty similar. The only difference was that KAGOME's looked very old. Perfect, she thought to herself, until she remembered it looked like the Tetsusaiga. She decided to keep it anyway. Now I want to know what you know. Do you follow? Both of them nodded. All right, let's begin. And remember, don't actually kill each other. KAGOME rolled her eyes at Shippo's comment. She decided to wait and see what Harry's first move was. When he didn't attack, she quickly moved behind him and got him on the ground in the blink of an eye. She held the katana to his neck with a fierce look on her face. For a second, Harry thought that KAGOME really would kill him. But sensing Harry's sudden fear, she smiled and got off of him, helping him up on the way. Well done, KAGOME. You are more advanced than I thought you to be. But let's see how good you are with arrows. KAGOME smirked at Shippo. She knew that he wasn't surprised by her little show, and wouldn't be surprised by her arrow skills. But nonetheless, she carefully picked out a sturdy bow and walked in front of a target about 20 feet away. She notched an arrow and closed one eye, aiming for the bullseye. Around her she could hear whispers of, she'll never make it. And what is she thinking, making a fool of herself in front of the cutie teacher? She could already sense Shippo grinning at that statement. KAGOME tried to make sure that she didn't put any of her Miko abilities into the arrow. Letting the arrow go, it pierced the very center of the bullseye. The guys clapped while the girls were muttering things like, show off. Once again, well done, Miss Higurashi. I would appreciate it if you helped the other students get accustomed to these new weapons. Mr. Potter, I'm sure you know a little something or other, so if you'd like to help as well, you may. Now get into pairs and practice. Harry could feel the anger inside him start to boil. A little? He'd show him how much he knew. Of course he really didn't know anything. Harry inwardly sighed. I guess I can watch KAGOME and imitate her. That way I might look a little handy with a sword. He studied KAGOME's current position. She held the sword firmly in her right hand and started to attack an invisible enemy. Hermione clapped at KAGOME's actions. Harry tried to imitate the same thing for Ron. But he dropped the sword countless times, almost hitting Ron or himself. Give it up, mate. We aren't going to learn anything by you trying to prove you know the sword when you don't. Why don't we just go join with Hermione and KAGOME? Harry crossed his arms, humphed and nodded. They walked over and had KAGOME show them some moves. She soon had Harry and Ron sparring. As she supervised, Hermione began whispering to her. Are you going to tell him about Harry's dream? Most likely. Do you want to come? Hermione nodded and continued to watch as Ron forced Harry to the ground, sword at neck. KAGOME clapped and stood up. But as she opened her mouth, a whistle blew. All right, everyone. You are dismissed for the day. No homework this class, except for you, Malfoy. I want an essay on being nice to others. Shippo informed. KAGOME and Hermione carefully walked over to Shippo. Shippo, we have something to tell you. Shippo frowned. Mom, you aren't supposed to mention my name in front of strangers. Indicating Hermione, but covered his mouth, realizing what he had just said. KAGOME giggled. Don't worry, Shippo, Hermione knows. But I promise she is the only one. But back to the real reason we're here. You know about Harry's past, right? Shippo nodded. Well, he had a dream that the fox escaped. Indicating you, we think. And that some Voldemort character is sending Nagini after you. I see. Well, I promise that I'll stay out of trouble. Scout Honor. Somehow I don't believe you. Hermione giggled at this. Don't worry. I got past the rat, didn't I? I can definitely get past the snake. Hey, Hermione. KAGOME, are you coming? Yelled Ron. See ya, Shippo. Yeah, see ya. Added Hermione. What did he want? Asked Harry. He wanted to tell us how good we did in class. Yeah, okay. Somehow he didn't believe them. They were keeping something from Ron and him, especially with a girl just knows line. How does a girl just know? He doesn't have anything against girls. They just always held secrets, and he was going to figure them out. But who is this Fox character? Perhaps KAGOME or Hermione knew who they were. He'll just ask them later. After dinner that night, Harry approached Hermione and KAGOME as they were studying for their Transfigurations test the next day. "Can I talk to you guys?" "Sure, Harry. What do you want to talk about?" asked KAGOME. "Well, do you or Hermione know who this Fox person is from my dream?" Hermione looked at KAGOME. KAGOME answered sweetly, "Whatever gave you that idea? I just feel you're keeping something from Ron and me." KAGOME stood up and walked over to Harry and placed a hand on his shoulder. "I can assure you that we aren't keeping anything from you." "That's debatable," he muttered. "What was that?" "Nothing. I can tell you what he said." Professor S stepped through the portrait. "What are you doing here, Professor?" questioned Hermione. "Well, I came to see KAGOME, actually." Harry shot him a glare. What exactly did he need KAGOME for? Or are they actually hiding something from him? Shippo continued, "I suppose that Hermione may come as well. I need to have them show some other fifth years how to fight better." "Good save," thought KAGOME. "Sure, we'll come. See you later, Harry." As KAGOME walked through the halls, she felt something move beside her. But as she turned, it vanished. She shrugged it off and continued down the hall with Shippo. Harry sat there aggravated at the whole situation. He tried to do his homework but failed miserably. All he could see was that professor's silly grin that always had the girls swooning all over him. He pondered at how he pulled that grin off until he could hear a voice. He strained to hear it again, but alas, he could not. He got up and walked out of the common room. The voice continued. As he listened in closer, he heard, "Kill the fox," repeated over and over again. Then he figured out that it must be Nagini. Harry ran to the data classroom where he hoped that KAGOME, Hermione, and Professor S were there. Harry slammed open the door. Professor S was behind his desk while KAGOME and Hermione were sitting on the tables. We were sitting on the tables when Harry came bursting into the room. He was breathing hard. I asked him what was wrong, but he didn't answer. Perhaps he had heard something? Maybe he had figured it out? I decided to ask him again. "Harry, what's wrong?" "KAGOME, Nagini is here." Harry leaned against the wall with his heart pounding. I looked at Shippo, who was watching Harry, yet contemplating something at the same time. Again I thought, what are you plotting? Will she be able to complete the task that was given to her long ago? The stars touch everyone's heart. Her heart was pounding as the others, and she ran through the hall. "Show yourself, Snake," he had shouted. She searched the shadows until she saw it. She could see its aura glowing black along with the shadows. It slithered right past them, heading for the Gryffindor common room. Realization struck the young Miko. She ran right to the portrait and said, "Fox Demon." It quickly opened, and she ran in along with Harry, Hermione, and Shippo. Nagini stopped and quickly coiled itself around Shippo. It sounded like he was talking to her. Then Harry spoke. It said to give his master the jewel and you'll get him back. KAGOME thought for a minute until Shippo yelled, "Don't give it to him." Nagini began to squeeze him tighter. KAGOME sighed. "All right, I'll give it to you." She quickly went to the girls' dormitories and opened her trunk. At the bottom lies the glowing jewel. It has caused so much pain, she thought. Carefully picking it up, she placed it around her neck. As she walked down the stairs, she asked, "Why does your master want it?" After waiting a minute, Harry translated. "He says that his master has sensed the jewel, and he wants it back." "Back? Huh?" She thought for a moment and put the sacred jewel around her neck. That could only mean one thing. "Shippo Naraku Disu." She was interrupted as a pale figure stepped from the shadows. It was a little girl wearing all white, with a white flower clip in her all-white hair. Realization struck her as she remembered the young demon detachment. "Kana, what does you master want?" "KAGOME." She whispered delicately, "You're still alive." Kana carefully lifted her mirror up. She directly aimed it at Harry. KAGOME dived and pushed Harry out of the way. "KAGOME, what was that for?" "Huh? It was just a mirror," Harry exclaimed. "Harry," she replied, "whatever you do, don't look into that mirror." "Professor S, do you think you can get a bow and arrows for me?" "Thanks." "And Hermione, go to the girls' dormitories, I beg you." As Kana continued to try and steal KAGOME's soul, KAGOME continued to dodge her attempts. She was going to make sure that nothing happened to her new friends. Kanna's lips turned into a small smile. KAGOME questioned this new look, until a white beam shot from the mirror straight at KAGOME. KAGOME, she whispered as KAGOME landed on the floor with a thud. Times have changed. I can see that, breathed KAGOME. She closed her eyes and opened them just in time to see Harry looking directly into the mirror. He could feel it calling him. The so-called Kanna had raised the mirror and aimed it directly at him once more. He did his best to avoid even glancing at it, but he couldn't help it. What was the problem with a little mirror that shoots lights? Maybe KAGOME was just exaggerating. He felt as though something was being taken from him, like a part of him was missing. Then he felt nothing. He heard nothing. He could see nothing. Darkness had taken hold of him and dragged him in. Harry! KAGOME screamed. She ran to where Harry was lying soulless. Kanna kept an emotionless mask the whole time. Kanna turned and seemed to be staring past her. KAGOME turned around to see a sheet white Ron. What happened to Harry? Did that little albino girl steal something from him? He stammered. Ron, she whispered, go back to the boys' dormitories. Now. Ron ran up the steps just as Professor S appeared at the portrait. KAGOME catch, he yelled. He tossed the bow and arrows at her. She easily caught them and notched an arrow. A blue light glowed around the arrow as it flew directly towards the mirror. Kanna carefully lifted the mirror and turned it around. There was another mirror on that side. The arrow hit the mirror and went inside it. KAGOME waited hoping that the mirror would break and that Harry would be back, soul and all. But the mirror didn't shatter. Nor did a soul return to Harry. No, instead the arrow came straight back at her along with hundreds of others. What is Naraku up to, Kanna? She asked while dodging multiple arrows. The Dark Lord is no longer Lord Naraku. She whispered. Her whispering sounded sad. Not emotionless like it usually is. Then what is with your new mirror? Huh? How do I get Harry's soul back? He might not wake up at all. Even with a soul. Came a new voice. KAGOME's heart seemed to stop at this news. The arrows stopped in mid-air and dropped to the ground softly. What? She whispered. You heard me. A taller woman stepped forward. But her hair was no longer in the bun like state it usually is in, but was down and resting on her shoulders instead. She opened her amethyst eyes and removed the fan from in front of her face. You're still alive too, Kagura? Kagura smirked. Well, if my sister was alive, then did you honestly think I was dead? Well, no offense, but I didn't really think about you at all. Kagura frowned. And here I was thinking about helping you. Please, Kagura. She whispered. Please tell me how to get Harry's soul back. Well, the Dark Lord's worst enemy is Harry. You know the stories. But his greatest fear is you. His greatest fear is me? Why? The day you defeated him was the day he realized that he wasn't the strongest being that could hope to rule and cause havoc around the world. But he thinks you are dead. But why are you telling me this? How will it help get Harry's soul back? She yelled. Tears now began streaming down her face. How your heart has changed. But mine cannot. I want my heart back as well as Kanna. Finally, after all these years, she realized that working under the reign of that man is hell. Why didn't you just steal your heart back? Don't you think we've tried? We just get punished and sent on more missions to try and destroy his life. Indicating Harry. Kanna shifted her mirror and a glowing orb emerged from it. It hovered there as Kagura continued. We're still enemies. She turned along with Kanna and began to walk out. For the time being. She added. KAGOME watched as Kagura and Kanna left with Nagini. She turned and stared at the hovering soul. It suddenly shot past her directly at Harry. She quickly ran to his side. He seemed lost. He was in total darkness. There was a hysterical laugh behind him. He jerked himself around to see a cloaked figure. No doubt he could tell it was Voldemort. But no matter how hard he tried, he could not speak. What's wrong, Potter? Cat got your tongue? He began to laugh again until he waved his wand and cried. Crucio. Harry fell to the black ground in pain. He wanted to scream, but he couldn't. He could hear a distant voice calling to him. He looked up and saw darkness. But as Voldemort continued to use the Crucio curse on him, he could hear the voice even louder. Harry, please, wake up. He opened his eyes to see a crying KAGOME next to him. His eyes softened at her worried eyes that seemed to be gazing into his. He could then feel himself regain consciousness. Harry, please, wake up. Shippo was standing behind KAGOME, watching as she cried over the person that yelled at her so much. Kagura is right, KAGOME. Your heart has changed. Oh Shippo, you have no idea. KAGOME continued to watch over Harry until his eyes opened. She continued to cry. Harry, are you okay? She whispered. I've been better. He replied. Oh Harry. She cried as she latched herself onto him. Harry watched her cry because of him. He felt guilty. A coughing sound came from his right. When he turned, he saw Professor S watching and grinning at what was happening before him. He blushed. KAGOME, can you get off of me? What would people say knowing I have a girlfriend, even with my reputation? I was worried about you and this is how you treat me? Well, yes. Harry, you jerk. KAGOME slapped Harry across his right cheek. He carefully touched where she just hit him but quickly withdrew his hand as he felt the pain rush through him. First of all, I told you not to look in the mirror, but no, you had to go and look. Then you don't even care that I was worried about you? She continued. Don't you have any common decency? She was red. She was red from anger and from blushing. You are such a jerk, she called again. She turned to avoid his gaze and looked out the window. But as she looked out the window, KAGOME could see two certain demons riding on a feather away from the castle. Thank you, Kagura, she whispered. What are you muttering about? Curiously asked Harry. KAGOME growled. What do you care? She stomped over and sat in a big red chair on the other side of the room. Shippo cautiously approached her. I think you've been around too many demons. You are starting to growl like them. KAGOME's eyes widened and then glared at Shippo. You do know where I get it from, right? Shippo put up his hands along with an innocent look. Whoever are you talking about, KAGOME? KAGOME growled again. You know very well, you moron. If I had a rosary right now, I would sit you into the ground. Harry watched from the far corner of the room. He quickly summoned some popcorn and continued to watch his show for the evening. I'll never understand her, he said while shaking his head. Cousin. What do you mean dedicate it to yourself? Me? Heh, sorry about that. I kind of forgot about my promise. Cousin. What do you mean you forgot? Me love ya, mean it, cousin. I'll show you love. Pounces in me and starts knocking out my teeth like she did in the 2nd grade. P.S. For those of you who don't know, TTFN stands for Tata for now. Get it? Good. And don't forget, if you have any questions, remember to email me at email thanks. And don't fret, I've already started chapter 12, so I'm hoping to update again sometime this week. Will she be able to complete the task that was given to her long ago? The stars touch everyone's heart. October grew closer along with the annual Halloween party. Throughout many of the classes, each student was being asked what they wanted to be for the party. But one student wasn't aware of the upcoming holiday. I don't believe this. KAGOME ran through the halls of the giant castle, dodging some flying dung bombs being thrown at her by a certain ghost. What's the matter, girl? Running late for classes? The poltergeist called from above. Peeves. How many times do I have to tell you? My name is KAGOME, not girl. And as a matter of fact, yes, I am running late for class. Peeves snickered as KAGOME continued to run towards the potions dungeon. She slammed the door open to see the entire potions class looking at her, including Professor Snape. Well, if it isn't the exchange student. Or can you even understand me? KAGOME inwardly growled at this. I can understand you perfectly. Is that right, girl? KAGOME growled again. I would appreciate it if you called me by my name, Professor. Oh really? I will call you what I wish. Now 20 points from Gryffindor, and I believe that will be a detention for you, Miss Higurashi. KAGOME rolled her eyes and made her way towards her seat next to Hermione. Why didn't you wake me up? She whispered as Snape went on with his lesson. Hermione grinned. You seem to be sleeping so soundly. I didn't want to wake you up. KAGOME playfully punched Hermione in the shoulder. They were going over herbal potions and how they should be made. KAGOME started to doodle on her paper as Snape droned on. You should be paying more attention. Came a voice from behind her. She turned around to see Ron. There's no point. I already know this stuff, she said as she continued to doodle on her paper. By the end of class she had everyone from the whole Shirkan Shard group. She sighed and stuffed the picture inside her bag at the end of class. As she walked out the door, Professor Snape called out to her, "Don't forget about detention tomorrow night." KAGOME groaned and walked out. Harry tapped her on the shoulder. "So what kept you this morning?" KAGOME shot a glare at Hermione, who put up an innocent face. "You can ask Miss Brains over here." She pointed at Hermione. "I've got a question for you. How did you already know what Snape was teaching?" "Like I said, I lived at a shrine. I was taught many herbal remedies, and with the 3-scroll essay he asked to write on Catfla, homework will be a snap," she said while snapping her fingers. Surprisingly, Hermione said, "I'm glad you know about Catfla. That's one of the only herbs I don't know." "Oh my god. Hermione actually not knowing something?" Harry asked. "The end of the world must be coming," stated Ron. Ron and Hermione quickly got in a fight about how people don't have to know everything. KAGOME sighed. She walked over next to Harry with her hands behind her head. "I'm pretty sure they like each other." "What was your first clue?" he asked sarcastically. KAGOME glared at him. "Well, excuse me for not knowing them longer. I thought you would have known by now. Are you calling me slow?" "Maybe." Harry quickly ran off for care of magical creatures, with KAGOME hot on his heels. Ron and Hermione stopped and watched as they ran into the distance. "What do you think their problem is?" asked Ron. "I don't know, Ron. Maybe if someone hadn't been arguing with me, we would have known." "Hey, you were arguing with me." "Whatever you say, Ron, whatever you say." Hermione walked off towards Hagrid's class. Ron stood for a moment until realizing Hermione left. "Wait up." Hagrid continued to teach about different types of demons, while KAGOME continued to keep her aura and scent concealed as he brought out what appeared and sounded like a relative of Kuga. Who knows if he could have told various stories about her or dog breath. And just to be safe, she concealed the aura of the legendary jewel hanging around her neck. Their assignment was to sketch a picture of the wolf demon along with some other minor demons that she didn't recognize. Homework was to research and sketch a picture of a demon. KAGOME sighed as she stuffed her drawings inside the bag, not realizing she dropped a piece of paper in the process. Harry bent down and picked up the piece of paper she dropped. "KAGOME, you dash." She didn't hear him. He glanced at the paper. "What the dash?" He gently placed the paper in his bag. KAGOME sat at the common room table muttering to herself. "Let's see, some of Catfla's common names are Bayberry and Yangmei. Treats the common cold, the flu, asthma." KAGOME yawned. "Stupid Snape," she muttered to herself. "You got that right." KAGOME turned to see Harry trying to figure out his essay. "Let me see what you have." Harry handed her the paper. It was blank. "Good essay so far," she said sarcastically. "I'm positive you'll get an A." Harry rolled his eyes. "Very funny," he said while snatching back his paper. Ron and Hermione came in the portrait arguing. "I told you Fred and George were going to try and have you sell their joke shop stuff. It's not stuff. It's merchandise. But it harms the students. It gets you out of class like Snape's." "Ron dash, will you two be quiet?" interrupted Harry. "Some of us are trying to write a 4-page essay," said KAGOME. "Sorry," they both muttered. Both sat in chairs on opposite sides of the room and glared at each other. "When are they going to get over themselves?" KAGOME whispered to Harry. He just shrugged and continued his essay. "I'm going to go to bed. Night, guys." All three of them muttered a good night. She could already tell it was going to be a long night for them. She went upstairs and got into some pajamas. "Just one last thing," she muttered to herself. She carefully put a clear powder over Hermione's pillow and started giggling. She put the bottle away and climbed into bed. KAGOME was waiting in the common room when Ron came down. Ron looked strangely at her. "What are you doing up so early?" he asked while yawning. "Waiting." "Waiting?" KAGOME nodded and closed her eyes. She continued to just sit there, hands folded in her lap. Ron just shrugged and sat on the couch watching KAGOME. Harry soon came down and also started to watch KAGOME. Ron, why are we watching her? She says she's waiting, but what the bloody hell for?" That sounded like Hermione, shouted a worried Ron. They looked at KAGOME. She was grinning ear to ear. Hermione ran down the stairs and sat on the couch. She had a black witch's hat with her hair pulled up inside it. She was furiously glaring at KAGOME. Hermione, what's wrong and why do you have a hat on? Asked Ron. A certain someone put a spell on my pillow to dye my hair purple, she said very calmly. She took off the hat to show KAGOME's damage. KAGOME and Harry immediately started laughing. Ron just kinda stood there and took everything in. What are you going to do? I'm gonna go to the hospital wing to see if they have a potion to change it back. You want me to come? That's very sweet, Ronald. I bet he's just trying to get out of his classes. He can't fight very well or transform a chair into a broom, stated Harry. Is that true, Ron? She asked while glaring at him. Maybe, he said while blushing. Why don't you just go to class? We're already late as it is. Hermione stomped out of the portrait towards the hospital wing, while the other three went to Dada class, which was being held outside again. When they got there, the whole field was empty except for them and Professor S. Where is everyone? Asked KAGOME. They'll be here. Why don't you guys practice? Ron and Harry each picked up a katana and began fighting. KAGOME picked up a bow and arrow and began practicing her shooting. Shippo walked up to her. I hear you have detention. How? Well, the jerk Snape gave it to me because I was late and I requested that he would call me by my name. Oh well, I requested you for detention. So don't worry too much. KAGOME sighed. That's a relief. KAGOME continued to practice until the rest of the class showed up. All right, class, has anyone figured out just why we are learning how to use a katana or bow and arrows? KAGOME smirked and raised her hand. Shippo grinned, which caused the girls in class to sigh again. Yes, Miss Higurashi? Does it have anything to do with what we are learning in Hagrid's class? Actually, yes, we are learning these things just in case you should come across any evil demons. When are we going to run into any demons? Can't we just use or hexes or jinxes? Questioned Malfoy. You'd be surprised. Magic doesn't work on demons. Only true defense will. So carry on with your groups. By the end of the day, KAGOME had pretty much stayed the same since she was already good. Harry had gotten better but not good enough to defeat KAGOME yet. Ron was still horrible. Hermione had never shown up, so they went back to the common room. After dinner, KAGOME nearly slapped herself in the head when she realized she had to go to detention. She ran up to the Dada classroom to have Shippo staring at her. What's wrong? He asked plainly. Sorry. Am. Late, she gasped. Shippo raised an eyebrow. Late? You're actually 10 minutes early. But go ahead and sit down. So what is it I'm actually supposed to be doing? I don't know. You're the first person that I've had for detention. So I guess do whatever. What are you going to do? Well, KAGOME looked at Shippo's desk. There was paper and crayons scattered about. KAGOME chuckled. I see you still like coloring as much as you did 500 years ago. Yeah, well. What are you planning on being for Halloween? Shippo asked, trying to change the subject. KAGOME smirked. Well, I guess you could say I'm going as myself if you catch my drift. What about you? Well, I was thinking the same thing. Probably be myself. Now why don't you do something while I continue my work? If you could call it work. She muttered. I heard that. Yeah, I know. KAGOME watched as Hermione got ready for the Halloween party. She was going as a legendary demon exterminator. She had unlike Sango's outfit except her colors weren't black and pink, but red with black armor. Why aren't you getting ready? I'm planning on showing up a little later. Suit yourself, I'm going down. She went to the window and looked out. The Halloween party was being held outside instead of the Great Hall this year. Many students were dancing or hanging out by the food. The weird girls were playing, well, weird songs. No wonder they are called the Weird Girls, she thought. She watched as Harry, Ron and Hermione came out onto the field. Ron came as a vampire while Harry went as a pirate. KAGOME sighed and walked over to her trunk. She carefully pulled out a white Haori and red hakamas. The Miko garbs, she quietly said. She put them on and tied back her hair. She went to look in the mirror but didn't see herself. Instead she saw Kikyo. She gasped and quickly took her hair down. She smiled when she saw herself again. She slid on some Miko sandals and went outside. Hermione greeted her. There you are. Let's go. So what are you supposed to be? Asked Harry. Kagome is dressed up as a Japanese Miko. You know, like from Professor Bin's class, replied Hermione, before Kagome could say one thing. I guess you could say that, Kagome muttered. Kagome surveyed the party. Dancers, people by the food table, Slytherins picking on first years, and a group of girls? Kagome walked over to where the girls were all huddling around something. He's so cute, shouted one of the girls. He's always cute, another one screamed. Kagome pushed through the crowd of girls. She burst out laughing at the sight before her. Shippo had tons of girls hanging on him and rubbing his ears. Shippo growled at her. Shut up and help me, he mouthed. Kagome nodded and pretended to be hugging Shippo like the other girls. She pulled one of Shippo's leaves from his vest. Kagome shook her head. He still wears the same thing, she thought. She threw the leaf on top of his head, causing him to turn into one of the girls. He quickly ran and hid behind Kagome, while she continued to laugh. I see you finally got your transformation leaves working. You no longer have your tail sticking out. Shippo glared at her. Hey Kagome. Who's this? Questioned Ron. Nice impression you're giving off. She whispered. What? Ron, this isn't a girl. This Professor S. What? He asked again. Show him. I'd rather not. Shippo said, glancing at the girls. Kagome grinned. I think they'd appreciate that. Anyway, why aren't you dancing? Yeah, right, like I'd dance with anyone. You haven't asked anyone, have you? Ron turned bright red. I don't see you dancing with anyone. I don't plan on dancing. Kagome saw Hermione sitting on a bench reading a book. She rolled her eyes and walked over to her with Ron. Come on, you two, get dancing. Hermione looked at her, then at Ron, and blushed. No. I don't think. Kagome pushed both of them out on the dance floor. You two have fun, she simply stated. Kagome walked to the punch table. Harry and Cho were talking at the punch table. Are you two having fun? Cho locked arms with Harry and nodded. Harry looked at Cho curiously. She simply sent Harry a loving smile. His eyes softened and he smiled back.
Kagome?
Kagome turned and saw Neville. Neville blushed when she looked at him. Would you dance with me? He stuttered. Sure, Neville. Kagome and Neville left Harry and Cho. Come on, pirate. Let's dance, Cho asked. He nodded and they went out on the field. Cho leaned into Harry and closed her eyes. Harry, on the other hand, was watching Neville dance with Kagome. He glared at the back of Neville's head. Kagome saw Harry and mouthed, What's wrong? Harry shook his head. He turned away blushing. Cho looked up at him and grinned. Are you embarrassed? No, of course not. The song stopped and Kagome walked back over to the punch table along with Harry and Cho. I first year came up and asked to dance with Cho. She smiled and nodded at the kid. Harry watched Cho go off. Come on, Harry, let's dance. Kagome dragged Harry on to the dance floor. A slow song began. Kagome came and leaned on Harry. He wrapped his arms around her waist and they rocked back and forth. Kagome and Harry both blushed. Kagome closed her eyes and continued to dance. Shippo still as a girl watched them dance. He sighed and sat on a bench. Colin Creevey came and sat next to him. Do why you want to dance? He stuttered. Shippo frowned. Heh, no thanks, he said, smiling. Boy, was this something to remember, he thought. Then you guys aren't happy campers. If you guys aren't happy campers, then I'm not a happy camper. So let's all be happy campers and have you guys review. Okay. So TTFN peepsalls. Enjoy. Will she be able to complete the task that was given to her long ago? The stars touch everyone's heart. He soared through the air. The heavy package from far away weighed him down. He strained to make it to the large castle in front of him. He soared through the window and searched the hall that was full of students, until he found his human. He stopped in front of her and hooted to get her attention. Comet, what do we have here? Kagome unwrapped the large package that her black and silver owl had carried here all the way from Japan. It was a broom. On the handle it read Demon Glider. Whoa, Kagome, that's awesome, Ron said in awe. Why did my mom send me a broom? That's not any broom. That's a flying broom used for Quidditch, answered Harry. A flying broom? Quidditch is a sport played on flying brooms. I'll have to explain it later. Yeah, Harry here is the new captain of the Gryffindor team. Since Angelina graduated, he was nominated," said Ron. "Hey Harry," Ginny started sitting next to Ron. "I'm not gonna play this year. Sorry, but you'll have to find someone else." "Me too, mate," Ron said, swallowing his eggs. "I don't want any more Weasley King songs this year." Ginny giggled. "So when are you going to have auditions, Harry?" "They're all day today. So much for rest on the weekend, eh?" KAGOME laughed. "Do you think my mom did some research on the sport and wanted me to try out?" "I don't know, KAGOME, it's a little tough." KAGOME frowned. "Don't think I can." KAGOME picked up a piece of paper that was hidden in the broom wrapper. It was a letter from her mom. "Dear KAGOME, how are you doing, dear? Hope you are having fun with your magic buddies. I did a little research on extra activities and I found one called Quidditch. I don't know if you want to give it a shot, but I got you a broom in case you did. I thought it might get your mind off of some things that happened. I don't want to see you upset anymore. You barely smiled when you were at home. Anyway, enjoy the rest of the year. Write whenever you can. Sayonara. Your favorite only mother. P.S. I hope my English is all right." Comet hooted and flew away as Ron and Harry snatched the letter out from her hands. Harry squinted at the words written down. Ron looked at KAGOME and studied her really hard. She smiled at him. He grinned. "Looks like you're doing just fine smiling if you ask me." She giggled. "Well, ever since I came here, I've been happy." "So you weren't happy before you came here?" asked Harry. He looked up from the letter and at KAGOME. She had her eyes cast downwards. "You could say that." She whispered. "What happened? Why were you unhappy?" "I'd rather not talk about it." "But I said I don't want to talk about it." She interrupted. "Well, that doesn't mean you have to yell at my Harry." KAGOME's eyes met with Cho's. They stared at each other for a second. KAGOME knew Cho was unhappy with her. Ever since Halloween, she has been trying to get on KAGOME's last nerve. Cho grinned and KAGOME glared at her. "Now come on, Harry, I want to watch you hold auditions." She continued. "But I said let's go." Harry looked back at KAGOME as Cho dragged him out the Great Hall entrance. She smiled weakly at him as he disappeared from sight. She carefully picked up her broom. "Ginny, do you think you can do me a favor?" "Sure, KAGOME, what is it?" "I want you to teach me everything you know about riding a broom. I'm gonna try out for Quidditch." "That's the spirit, KAGOME. Let's go." Ginny led her out to an empty clearing on the opposite side of the school. Quidditch practice was being held on the other side of the school. Ginny told her to lay her broom on the ground next to her. She nodded and plopped the broom down. "Now, hold your hand above your broom and say up, ok." She placed her hand above the broom. "Like so?" Ginny nodded. "Up." The broom flew up and placed itself in her grasp. "Whoa, cool. Now get on and kick off the ground." KAGOME mounted her broom. She kicked hard off the ground and went flying into the air. "I feel like a witch from a fairy tale." "Well, half of it is true." Both girls giggled. Ginny continued to teach KAGOME about Quidditch and the different positions. "I think I want to be the goalie. The position is called keeper." Ginny corrected. "Oh well, excuse me." KAGOME replied sarcastically. "Now I'm going over to the field. Want to come watch?" Ginny nodded and began to lead KAGOME to the Quidditch pitch. When she got there, Harry was trying out some other students. She went over and stood in line with the others. Most of the others kept falling off their brooms. She watched one person get thrown into Shippo's open window. Shippo isn't going to be too happy about that, she thought. Next, Harry called, still watching, where a third-year's broom went right into the whomping willow tree. KAGOME walked onto the field and stood in front of Harry. "Here reporting for duty, Captain," she called. "So you are trying out. What position are you trying for?" "I'm going for the goal. I mean the keeper. At least you know what it's called. Go out to the field in front of the goals. I'm gonna throw some quaffles at you." KAGOME nodded and began flying in the air until she stopped. Harry, which are the goals?" Harry slapped his forehead. "It's the big rings on the long poles." "Oh, okay." She flew up in front of the goal posts and hovered there. Harry took a quaffle and threw it at the left post. KAGOME strained, but missed. She could hear Cho cheering Harry on. She gripped her broom. Harry had retrieved the quaffle and threw it once more, but at the right one this time. KAGOME swung her broom and batted it to the other side of the stands. Ginny cheered this time. KAGOME smiled and sent Ginny a thumbs up. Harry grinned and let the bludgers loose. They flew right at her along with the quaffle. She dodged the bludgers and continued batting the quaffle at the stands. Main target, Cho. It hit her once and she fell down. She ended up with a broken nose because of the force KAGOME put on it. Ginny fell down laughing, and KAGOME almost fell off her broom from laughing so hard. Harry helped Cho to the hospital wing and came back. Well, I guess, yes, both Ginny and KAGOME said. You're on the team, yes. KAGOME and Ginny high-fived and began to do a victory dance on the field. Harry interrupted them. That doesn't mean you can bat quaffles at my girlfriend. KAGOME grinned. That's the best part. Welcome to the team. She turned around to see Seamus Finnegan. Hey Seamus, what position do you have? I got chaser. So I'll try to keep that quaffle away from you as much as I can. Thanks. So who else is on the team? Well, Lavender is a chaser along with Katie Bell. Neville is actually good with a bat, so he is a beater. What are you, Harry? I'm the seeker. I go after the golden ball with wings, he said sarcastically.
Fun.
Well, we better get serious, because our first game is next week, said Seamus. That doesn't leave us a lot of time. Well, Snape booked the whole field last week, so we couldn't try people out, and we were finally able to book it, spat Harry at the mention of Snape's name. Okay, then let's get started. And here come the Gryffindors out onto the field with their new captain, Harry Potter. The crowd erupted with cheering. Harry waved at the crowd cheering for him. The Slytherins rolled their eyes at him. And here comes their new cutie chaser, KAGOME Higurashi. The guys cheered this time. Hooch came out on the field and blew the whistle. KAGOME got on her broom and kicked off. She went and hovered in front of the goals, waiting for the quaffle. All right, Slytherins have the quaffle. Katie dives for it and oh, she's knocked out by a bludger. Here comes the quaffle straight for the hot newbie. Let's see what she can do. Mr. Lee, don't act like your older brother. Got that, Brandon? Sorry, Professor. Here comes the quaffle and WHOA, she bats the quaffle out of the stadium. KAGOME grinned. Harry gave her a thumbs up and continued to look for the snitch. She watched as Seamus kept the quaffle away from her goal. She looked at the audience. The Gryffindors watched the quaffle action, as well as the Ravenclaws. She saw Ron and Hermione stand up and cheer when we scored through the goals. She also noticed a girl in the stands that had a giant lion head on her head that would roar. But when she saw Cho, she wasn't watching the quaffle or Harry even. No, she was watching her. She raised an eyebrow at this. She looked forward. Wide-eyed, she saw both bludgers headed right for her. Harry searched intently for the snitch intently. When he gazed at the stands, he noticed Cho looking to his right. He turned and saw she was looking at KAGOME. A bludger came near him, then instantly stopped. He sighed in relief as it started heading away from him. He watched them speed up and fly right toward KAGOME. She turned and noticed this too. She quickly dodged one, but a second one came from behind her and knocked her of the broom. Harry raced his broom, heart thumping, and grabbed her hand. She dangled below him and muttered a thanks. He brought her down to the ground where her broom had landed. Are you okay? Never better, she replied. She stumbled over to her broom. The rest of the team landed and went to see if KAGOME was okay. He sighed and closed his eyes. But suddenly he heard what sounded like thumps and heard shouts coming from the stands. He opened his eyes to see Neville batting away bludgers left and right. But no matter how many times he batted them away, the two bludgers continued to head straight for him. But behind Neville, KAGOME was watching the bludgers closely until she gasped as though in realization. She quickly ran away and out of the stadium, bludgers following hot on her heels. Harry got on his broom and dashed after her. She knew they were after her, but who put them against her? She may not be smart on the game, but she did know that they weren't supposed to follow her everywhere. She continued to run until she felt a pull on her arm. She was hoisted on to the broom behind Harry. What are you doing here? Saving you, he stated simply. They are only after me, so put me down. No, I wouldn't let you get hurt in front of me. Harry continued to speed away from the jinxed bludgers. KAGOME watched Harry look to his side. She turned and saw the golden snitch. She smiled and shouted, "Grab it, Harry. This isn't a timeout, remember? We could still win. You're getting pulverized with bludgers and you are thinking about the snitch? You're crazy. I know I am. Grab it." Harry rolled his eyes and reached for the snitch. She saw some Gryffindor students trying to make the bludgers stop. They continued to shout Petrificus Totalis. Harry almost had the snitch. She knew he wasn't going to reach it at this rate. She pushed him off the broom. Harry instantly grabbed the snitch and KAGOME knew that was her cue to catch him. Harry then glared at her. "You were crazy. I save your life and that's the thanks I get." The bludgers stopped in mid-air and fell to the ground. They landed to have the team and stadium greet them. Everyone congratulated them. Harry opened his hand, remembering that he caught the snitch. The crowd went wild and patted him on the back. KAGOME jumped up and down like a schoolgirl even though she is and clapped her hands. "Yay!" she called out and hugged Harry. He instantly blushed and lightly hugged her back. She let go and continued to yay. Cho pushed her way to Harry and hugged him. Over his shoulder she gave KAGOME sort of an evil eye. "And Gryffindor wins," came the voice of Brandon Lee from the announcer's box. The Slytherins stomped out of the stadium while the Gryffindors picked up Harry and KAGOME and carried them to the common room. When they got there, the house elves had set up butterbeers around the room along with snacks and other foods. Shippo came over to KAGOME during the party. "So do you have an explanation for that exciting episode?" "Only one thought. Do you think he has a spy here? You know Hogwarts wouldn't allow someone like that in here." "I guess you're right. You know I am. Just enjoy the party. And congratulations on the victory." "Yeah. Thanks." She went and sat down on the couch. The snitch came and fluttered before her. She smiled and stroked its feathery wings. Harry sat down next to her. "Congratulations," she whispered. "Well, I wouldn't have caught it if you hadn't pushed me off the broom." KAGOME giggled. "That's true." Some first years came up and asked if Harry would tell them the story of how he caught the snitch. He began to tell the story. KAGOME got up and looked out a window. In the distance she saw a flock of birds suddenly rise and fly away from the forbidden forest. Curiosity got the better of her. She grabbed a cloak and went into the night towards the forest. Will she be able to complete the task that was given to her long ago? The stars touch everyone's heart. Harry watched the first years leave and continue partying. He sighed. That was the fourth time he had to tell how he won the Quidditch game. He looked around the common room. Everyone was still down in the common room since it's the weekend. Tomorrow there would be a trip to Hogsmeade and he couldn't wait. Christmas was coming up, so he would have to find some presents for all his friends. He yawned. "Harry." He jumped at the sound of his name. Opening an eye, he said, "Yes?" It was Brandon Lee, the new Quidditch announcer. "I wanted to hear the story from KAGOME. You know, her point of view." Harry looked around. "Well, I haven't seen her for a while actually. Thanks anyway." Brandon walked away, leaving Harry alone again. Harry wondered where KAGOME could have gone. "Harry, I can't find KAGOME." Hermione said worriedly. "Neither can anyone else. She probably just went to bed." "No, I checked upstairs. Her cloak is gone too." Harry was interested now. "Her cloak is gone." Hermione nodded. "You don't think?" She looked out the window toward the forest. "Nah, I don't think she went out there." Suddenly they saw two trees come up from the ground and then fell. "I'm sure she is fine. But it seems Grop isn't." KAGOME sighed. She hadn't meant to make the giant mad. All she did was ask what he was doing here and what his name was. He was stomping and he had pulled up two trees. "And oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Giant." She continued to try and calm him down. "Grop want Hagger. So you name is Grop. Now let's see, Hagger?" Agreed?" Grop nodded his giant head. "Yes, Grop want Hagger. Grop want Hagger and Hermie." She sighed again. "Hermie too? Let's see. Herman?" Grop roared. "Noi? Hermit?" He roared once more. KAGOME snapped her fingers. "Hermione?" Grop clapped his giant hands. "Hermie. Hagger and Hermie aren't here." She shouted so that he could hear her. Grop roared and began to stomp once again. "No." she shouted. Kagome is here, don't worry. Grop bent down until his face was right in front of hers. He pointed at her. You be Gome? Yes, Grop, I'm Gome. It's a pleasure to meet you. He began to clap and dance around in a circle. Gome is friend. She giggled at this. You won't tell, will you? She turned around to see Hagrid with a crossbow in hand. She smiled. I won't tell. He wiped his forehead. Good. Now you best get along. Don't need you gettin' in trouble. She nodded and waved goodbye to Grop, who did the same motion with curiosity in his eyes. She giggled again. Quickly, she put the hood of her cloak back on and ran through the forest to the castle. Harry watched as a cloak figure ran towards the castle, avoiding light as they went. A cloak, he muttered to himself. Quickly, he ran upstairs, grabbed his invisibility cloak along with the Marauder's map. He put on the cloak, instantly disappearing, and undid the map. I solemnly swear I am up to no good. He whispered and tapped the parchment. Just coming into the castle, it showed that it was KAGOME. He ran down to the first floor. Snape was hiding where KAGOME would be coming in. He waited around the corner from where Snape was, and hid in the shadows. He could hear footsteps coming down the corridor. He then saw her, still wearing the cloak, come into view. He snatched her from the hall, and heard a slight gasp escape from her lips. He pushed her against the wall to conceal her from view and covered her mouth with his hand to keep her silent. Snape came around the corner and watched around intensely. He then walked away, leaving them alone in the corridor. She continued to struggle against the grasp holding her against the wall. She was too scared to open her eyes and see who was holding her. Suddenly, she was released and heard the quiet whisper of, "What are you doing here?" She opened her eyes. "Harry," she shouted and attacked him with a hug. He began to blush a deep pink. She released him and giggled. "Don't scare me like that, okay?" she said, playfully punching him. "Yeah, sure," he said, rubbing where she punched him. "What were you doing in the Forbidden Forest?" "Oh, just curious as to what was out there." That seemed to satisfy Harry's curiosity. Harry placed the invisibility cloak over her and himself. He pushed her in front to lead the way. She smells nice for just coming out of the forest, he thought. He then mentally slapped himself for thinking that. "You have a girlfriend," he shouted at himself. "Are you okay?" she asked, looking him in the eyes. "Why yeah. Why do why you ask? 1, because you're stuttering, and 2, because your cheeks are red." She placed a hand on his forehead, causing him to blush even more. He took her hand of his head, held it for a second, then dropped it. He looked her in the eyes. "I'm fine. Promise." "Ah," she said, looking back in his eyes. He brushed past her, going into the common room, leaving her in the hall. She began to blush thinking about what just happened. Slowly, she walked into the common room. She got into her bed and closed her eyes. She saw that night a scraggly-looking man fighting against a woman. She cast a spell that made him fly into nothingness. "We can't go." "Why?" "Because I have a prefects meeting." "Oh. When is it over?" "I don't know, Harry." Cho gave Harry a light kiss on the cheek. "Don't worry, it's just one meeting. So I'll see you afterwards. Have fun at the Hogsmeade trip." Cho left and went into the meeting classroom. Ron and Hermione approached him. "Maybe I should stay here." "You can't do that, Harry," started Ron. "Ron's right, who is going to show KAGOME around?" finished Hermione. "I'm sure she could find her way around. Besides, you need to find Christmas gifts still." "All right, I'll go." "Bye, Harry." "Yeah, bye, mate," said Ron. Harry went to the common room. In 15 minutes they would be leaving. He sighed. Where could KAGOME be anyway? He began to walk back out until he felt something hit him in the head. It was a yellow backpack. He turned around to see KAGOME in what looked like a green and white schoolgirl's outfit with a really short skirt. KAGOME giggled. "What are you looking at, Harry?" "Nothing," he said, blushing. "Well, it's just going to be me and you. Ready to go?" "Yeah, sure." KAGOME and Harry walked down to where the students are to meet. Flitwick soon approached KAGOME and held out his hand. "Permission slip?" She dug around in her backpack until she pulled out a crinkled piece of paper. She placed it in his hand. He scowled. "If Umbridge were still here, you wouldn't be going to Hogsmeade with a permission slip like that." "What's his problem?" He liked Professor Umbridge a lot. Trust me, you would have hated her. They arrived at Hogsmeade not long after. He first decided to take her to the joke shop, where she began to tinker with different items, until one went off in the store and they were kicked out. He then took her to the candy store. She walked to the counter and began to look at things. Then he felt a tap on his shoulder. Turning around, he saw Remus Lupin and Tonks. He smiled. What are you guys doing here? We came to tell you that you must come to the order again this Christmas. Oh, he said, casting his eyes downwards. Things were going to be different without his godfather. But he knew he would have to face it sooner or later. Remus smiled and patted him on the back. Don't worry, you'll have fun. Yeah, began Tonks. Well, we must be leaving. Have fun with your friend. Harry blushed while Tonks giggled at her own comment. She and Lupin left, and KAGOME came up to Harry with a bag. He sighed. Why don't we go to the Three Broomsticks? Sure. What's that? It's a restaurant, you could say. He led her to a table where he ordered 2 butterbeers for them. He watched KAGOME sit there and fiddle with the wrapper of a candy she bought. She then placed her hand gently on the table. He couldn't understand it. Last year he wanted to do nothing but hold Cho's hand, and he finally got that wish. But now he wants to hold KAGOME's hand? He was so in deep thought that he didn't realize that KAGOME was uncontrollably laughing. And someone kept saying, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. He felt something trickle down his face. A flask of butterbeer had been spilled all over him. He frowned and glared at the laughing KAGOME. She abruptly stopped and glared back. He sighed in defeat and began to wipe up the butterbeer that had been spilled on him. KAGOME picked up a napkin and walked over to him. She began to wipe up his face. He froze and watched KAGOME. She finally smiled and looked back at him. They began to inch closer to each other, until a loud bang came from behind them. An angry Cho stomped over to them. We got out of our meeting early. Exactly what were you two doing? Nothing, Cho. A flask of butterbeer just spilled on me, that's all, answered Harry. Okay then, your presence will no longer be required, she said, indicating KAGOME. KAGOME closed her eyes and stood up. Fine, I'm leaving. I'll see you later, Harry, she said flatly. Then, she left without sparing them another glance. Well, here's the next chapter. Will she be able to complete the task that was given to her long ago? The stars touch everyone's heart. I remember when I figured out exactly how my father died. Or rather, murdered. He knew I was from the future, so he plotted to get me. The name Higurashi was hated by him. He went after my father, hoping to destroy myself. But didn't he realize that if I was there destroying him, that he would fail to destroy me? Didn't he know that time cannot be altered? I guess he did not. Yet he is still after me. Naraku? Or should I say Voldemort now? There is no difference. He is still the evil character that I hate so much. But yet, evil is only the name we give out secret fears. So does that mean I fear Naraku? Do I fear the one that tried to kill me and my new friends? No, would not call it fear, but hatred itself. Did you hear? Someone new is coming to the order, screamed a giggly Ginny. Yeah. So, Ron, you don't understand. It's going to be another girl, Hermione screeched. Great, just what we need, more girls, Harry said sarcastically. Harry, don't you understand? If they are coming here, apparently they as well have something against Voldemort. Stop whimpering, Ron. That's true. Who knows, maybe they will know something about him we don't. I'm so excited. Tonks said that she would be coming tonight with Remus Lupin. But she also said you might know them. We might know the girl who Voldemort has something against? Hermione nodded slowly, in thought. Wait, isn't now tonight? A shout came from downstairs. She's here. Hermione and Ginny darted out of the room, while Ron and Harry slowly went downstairs. When they got there, a crowd had already formed around her. Even Ginny and Hermione couldn't see who it was. Fred and George had pushed out of the crowd. She's bloody hot, mates, they said together. Too bad she's your age. The crowd dispersed and they continued to hear nothing but wonderful comments about the new arrival, until there alone stood the girl hidden behind Hermione and Ginny. They seemed to be chatting away already. Ginny turned around. Are you guys just going to stand there or what? Hey Ron, hey Harry. They looked up and none other than KAGOME was standing before them. She smiled and placed her bag on the ground. Mouths agape. Ron asked, "What in bloody hell are you doing here?" "Well, Mr. Lupin requested that I come here because of past experiences," she replied, glancing at Hermione when she said the last part. Hermione giggled at this. "Well, we were told you've encountered Voldemort before. Want to explain that?" KAGOME cast her eyes to the floor. "I don't want to talk about it." She picked up her bag and started to walk past Harry and Ron. Harry grabbed her wrist. "KAGOME," he whispered, "you can tell us." "Let me go." She seethed. "Not until you tell me." "Let her go, Harry," Hermione said with anger in her eyes and voice. He let her go. Hermione then led KAGOME up to her room where they would be staying together. "What's their problem?" "Don't know, Ron." "KAGOME, what's wrong?" "Nothing is wrong. Don't worry about me." "KAGOME, don't even try it. You're like my new sister." "What is wrong?" "Nothing. If you don't tell me, I'll—" "What are you going to do, Hermione?" "I'll tell your secret." "You wouldn't dare." "Yes, I would." KAGOME glared at Hermione, and Hermione glared back. Finally KAGOME gave up. "Fine. I'll tell you." She sat down on her new bed and hugged her pillow.
I'm afraid.
"What could you possibly be afraid of? You went against the toughest demons in over 500 years ago." "Well, I guess you say I've come to a conclusion." She paused a moment. "I guess you could also say I was told. And I've been afraid ever since." "Naraku is back." "How?" "Naraku is Voldemort. He is after—" Hermione cut her off. "Harry, he's always been after Harry. Kind of. So what is there to be afraid of?" "I'm afraid of what will happen when he finds out I'm still alive. I've been afraid ever since his two best fighters told me he was alive. That's why I've been working so hard in Shippo's class. That's why he has pushed me more than anyone else. And you know what else? He's coming here to help me train even more. He knows that Naraku is alive. I don't want to fear Naraku or Voldemort or whatever his freaking name is. I don't know what will happen if I fear him. That's why I won't. And I won't let him get to you guys. You all are my best friends. Even if Harry is a little hot-headed at times." "I see." She closed her eyes and thought for a minute as KAGOME began to unpack her things. "But don't worry, we'll be here the whole time for you." KAGOME smiled. "That's good to know. But it doesn't exactly help me train with Professor Tough Trainer." They both giggled. "Come on, let's get some dinner before the guys eat it all."
Ok. I'm starved.
They began to walk down to the kitchen. They continued to turn down many halls and going down many steps. "This place is huge." "Whose is it?" "This was the home of Sirius Black and the entire Black family. Sirius is Harry's godfather." "Oh, neat, so this is his godfather's place?" "Not exactly, you see, Sirius was killed in a battle against Death Eaters last year. So I wouldn't mention it."
Ok.
"Wait." Hermione looked around and opened a door to their left. They went in to see a room that looked like it hadn't been used in months. Hermione went and picked up a picture on top of a dresser. "Here, look at this." It had Harry laughing with a scraggly-looking man, who seemed to be familiar. But the picture was moving. "That's Sirius Black," she said, indicating the other man. "Okay, but why is the picture moving? It's kind of a wizard camera picture thing, I think." KAGOME smiled at the two joking around in the picture, until she heard a low grumble. She looked down at her stomach. She giggled as well as Hermione. "Can we find the kitchen now?" Hermione nodded and closed the door as they left. She continued down the stairs until they finally got to the kitchen where everyone except themselves was there. "I didn't know there was going to be so many people," she said nervously. "Don't worry, they're all nice. You don't think Harry is mad at me, do you?" she said as Harry was clearly avoiding her. "I'm sure he'll get over it." "Have you met Tonks yet?" KAGOME shook her head and Hermione led her over to Tonks. "Hello, KAGOME," said a perky Tonks. "It's a pleasure to meet you." "Same," she replied. "I'm going to like her, aren't I?" KAGOME whispered to Hermione. As she sat down there came a voice from the end of the table. "In honor of our guest, we have prepared a Japanese food feast, or a JFF, whatever you want to say. So dig in and welcome to the order, KAGOME." "Who was that?" "That was Mr. Weasley, Ron's dad." "Oh," she whispered. Suddenly, many dishes came flying towards the table, which certainly gave our Miko a scare. Many delicacies such as fried eggs, pickles, rice, and teriyaki chicken landed before everyone. Chopsticks came with the dishes as well. But then a certain dish caught her eye. A giant bowl of Odin came and landed right in front of her. She stared at it with hungry eyes, but didn't move. "What's wrong, Kagome?" Hermione asked. My Odin. Favorite. Is that your favorite food or something?" Kagome slowly nodded. She quickly grabbed a bowl and scooped tons of Odin into her bowl and began eating. Fred and George watched in awe along with many others as she gobbled down the bowl of heaven. She looked up and blushed with embarrassment. Even Harry was actually looking at her. She got up and with an "excuse me" went upstairs where she occupied herself for the rest of the evening. Fred and George looked at each other. Cool, too, for some fun time. It's stupid. And that's what makes it funny. So don't forget to R&R. No, not rest and relaxation. Read and review. Duh. So TTFN. Next chapter. Will she be able to complete the task that was given to her long ago? The stars touch everyone's heart. Will you please stop? Hermione continued to giggle. She had been making fun of Kagome about dinner a couple of nights ago. But you were so funny, Kagome growled. I've told you about hanging around too many demons, right? You are one too, in case you haven't noticed. She replied.
Yeah, even noticed.
He said, his demonic features appear for a moment. Anyway, are you ready? For what? She asked, yawning. You can't sit here all of Christmas break, you have to train. So, chop chop. Do I have to? It's 10 in the morning, for crying out loud. There will be no crying on my watch. Let's get going. Fine. She grumbled as she got up and went to change into her Miko garbs. I'll be down in a minute. Okay? But he was already gone. Hermione had left too. She sighed and pulled her Miko garbs on. Even though she hated them, she was told to train in them. She began to walk downstairs until she came across the door her and Hermione had gone into. She wanted a better look at that picture. She glanced around before she reached out for the knob. But it was locked. Hermione said no one lived in this room anymore. So why is it locked? She mumbled to herself. She shrugged it off. Perhaps they were cleaning it a bit. She continued down the hall until she was pulled into a room. The door was shut and locked behind her. It was dark, and all she saw were a pair of aqua-colored eyes. She screamed. The lights were flicked on to reveal a fighting dojo, along with Shippo in demon form. Was all that really necessary? She said, taking an air from being scared like that. It wouldn't have been as much fun, and what's even better is you'll be training against me in my demon form. Okay, what's the difference? Are you calling me weak, weakling? Why, yes I am, she said, grabbing a katana from the rack beside her. Fine, be that way. I will. And so the fight began. Shippo had the upper hand at this point. He had sent one of his tops toward her, which trapped her for a moment. But she got up and attacked him with her sword. They continued to fight and train for many hours. Where the heck is she? Calm down, Harry, it's not the end of the world. How, Ron, aren't you worried about her? She wasn't at lunch or dinner. No one has seen her all day. It's 9 o'clock. Kagome's fine mate. Besides, she was with Hermione this morning, and she said that Kagome is with Professor S. Him? I hate him. I don't know why everyone likes him. Geez, you don't have to be jealous, though. Harry blushed and crossed his arms. I'm not jealous, just peeved. Sure, Harry, he said, leaving the room. I'm going to Hermione's room where it's quiet. He called back. Harry sighed and left the room as well. He kept walking until he began to hear what sounded like sword fighting in the room ahead. He quietly walked to it and tried to turn the knob. It was locked. He placed his ear on the door and listened in as voices could be heard. Well, Kagome, you're definitely getting better. Thanks, but I think you're getting rusty in your old age. What, I'm not that old. Just 500. Harry chuckled, even if he wasn't sure why she said that. He continued to listen in as they continued to talk. I guess since you practiced so long, you are free to go. Really? Thank you so much. The door suddenly opened, causing Harry to fall backwards into the hallway. Kagome looked at him. What are you doing here on the floor? Oh, nothing, you just scared me as I walked by. That's all. Were you in there all day without any breaks? He added, yeah, what do you care? I was just wondering. Well, I'm starved, so I'll see you later. Wait, can I join you? KAGOME eyed him suspiciously. I guess. Harry smiled and walked with her down to the kitchen, where she immediately raided the fridge looking for something. What are you looking for? I'm seeing if we… Ah, there it is. She held up a bowl of the stuff she gobbled down a couple nights ago. She began to grin as she quickly went to the table with some chopsticks. He watched in amazement as she gobbled the stuff down yet again. She looked up when she finished. What? Someone was hungry. She instantly blushed again. Well, yeah, I've been in that room all day. Besides, Odin is my favorite food. Well, I think you need some sleep, I know I do. Tomorrow's Christmas Eve, so, are you serious? I totally forgot. I got to go get ready. She ran upstairs, leaving Harry alone in the kitchen. He sighed and slowly got up and went upstairs himself. Merry Christmas Eve. A hyper KAGOME was jumping on her bed, and it wasn't even Christmas yet. She began jumping from her bed to Hermione's to hers again, and so on. Hermione was suddenly awake when she felt the force on her bed over and over again. What are you so happy about? Well, she stopped bouncing. This is my first year celebrating Christmas in England. I'm so excited. Calm down, hyper girl. Let's go downstairs for breakfast. All right. My first Christmas Eve breakfast in England. KAGOME hopped down the steps with Hermione trudging behind her. Harry and Ron soon joined them and watched her jump down the stairs 2 at a time. How can she be that hyper in the morning? Harry asked, yawning. I'm not sure. I don't think anything could make me that hyper, answered Hermione. I bet learning would, muttered Ron. Hermione glared at Ron. I bet you could scare he who must not be named with that look. Isn't that who you call that Voldemort character? Questioned KAGOME on purpose. Ron whimpered at the sound of his name. Hermione rolled her eyes. You're such a baby, Ron. Now it was Ron's turn to glare. Anyway, started KAGOME, trying to get off the subject of Voldemort Naraku. What is for breakfast anyway? I don't know, last year we had a kind of breakfast feast. Cool, exclaimed KAGOME. When they arrived in the kitchen, all the adults were down there with piles of toast, pancakes, biscuits, waffles, sausage, bacon, and eggs. Wow, KAGOME said with wide eyes. Harry smiled. Come on, let's eat. They all sat down and began to chow down. KAGOME ate a lot of the bacon, but stopped when she felt like someone was watching her. She continued to glance around the room until she spotted a man, whose eye was rolling around, studying her up and down. She poked Harry. Who's that? That's Mad-Eye Moody. She smiled and got up. Carefully she walked over to him, his eyes still watching her. She held out a hand. Hello there. I'm KAGOME Higurashi. You're Mr. Moody, right? He grunted and didn't take her hand but continued to watch her. What are you, girl? KAGOME, and I believe I'm human, but a witch too. By this time Harry, Ron, and Hermione were watching her try to become friends with Mad-Eye. No, you're a different kind of magic. More of a… She cut him off. I'd rather not talk about it here. But I'll tell you some other time since you're a member of the order. He grunted and went back to eating. She sighed and gave up trying to have a regular conversation with him, and sat back down next to Harry. He grinned. I see you didn't have much luck with Mad-Eye. No kidding, she mumbled. KAGOME brought the sword to his neck with a fierce countenance. Her eyes were burning with excitement, and her clothes clung to her from being so hot. Her hair hung in a messy bun thrown on top of her head, but suddenly fell as the one she attacked slowly got up. All right, Kag, you are definitely getting better. Thanks, Shippo. Can we go now? I mean, it's almost time for Christmas dinner? I don't know. She gave him a puppy dog look. Do you honestly think that would work for me? She shook her head but continued anyway. Fine. Yeah, awea. She leapt out of the room and called back. I'll meet you downstairs. She ran to her room to find Hermione had already left, as well as Ginny. I can't be that late, can I? She whispered to herself. She shrugged and went to her trunk. She pulled out a long-sleeved shirt that was blue with a penguin on it and a short black skirt and put it on. She also pulled out the sacred jewel and put it around her neck. Smiling, KAGOME started going downstairs. There it was hanging above them. All she wanted to see is if anyone else was upstairs so she wouldn't have to walk down all alone. But They happened to look up and see the dangling plant up above them down the hall from where everyone was dining. Both were blushing dark red and became interested in the floor. Harry was the first to respond. Well, if you don't, since I have a girl, but he was cut off by KAGOME kissing him square on the lips. He closed his eyes at the warm feeling he was experiencing. He had definitely never felt anything like that from Cho. He carefully wrapped his arm around her waist to pull her closer, but she abruptly broke the kiss. She smiled and walked off into the kitchen. He continued to stare after her, but then came out of his trance and followed after. She had sat down next to Professor S and he didn't seem too happy about something. Shippo frowned when KAGOME sat down. Her scent had differed. Then he realized it. What exactly were you two doing? KAGOME blushed dark red. We just happened to be caught under a certain Christmas plant. That's all. He sighed. I leave you alone for 5 minutes and that is what happens. KAGOME rolled her eyes and watched Harry sit down on the other side of the table, across from her. They avoided contact for the rest of dinner and did not say a word to each other. Later during dinner though, a blushing Ron and Hermione also stepped into the dining room. What happened to you? Hermione blushed and shook her head. KAGOME smirked. I take it you found the mistletoe in the hallway? She slowly nodded. KAGOME giggled and Hermione blushed even more. Suddenly, a sound of something hitting glass caught everyone's attention. Remus was on top of a chair, glass and fork in hand. He smiled and glanced at everyone's curious faces. Well, as everyone knows, it is Christmas Eve. He began, and the whole order has gotten young Harry Potter a present. Harry glanced around the room at everyone who was now looking at him. The whole order? He asked curiously. Yes, Harry, the whole order. Now, Mad Eye, will you bring out the gift? A grunt could be heard and the rolling of wheels. There was a platform with a black veil covering something tall upon the platform. Harry stood up and walked towards it. He hesitated at the black veil that reminded him of the life it took. Well, Harry, aren't you going to open it? Harry gently tugged on the veil. He gasped at the man who stood before him. Merry Christmas, Harry. The man said. He gasped and hugged the man. By this point Hermione, Fred, George, Ron, and Ginny had gotten up and went over to the man. KAGOME stared at him long and hard before she gasped. It was the man in the picture Hermione showed her. Yet, she felt she had seen him before along with the veil. She continued to watch as everyone shouted Sirius. That must be his name. Sirius continued to hug people and give handshakes to those who he hadn't seen since his death. He glanced around the room to see two people he had never seen. One was a man with auburn hair pulled up into a ponytail. He also had aqua-colored eyes. Next to him sat a girl about Harry's age. She had raven black hair that flowed down her back and sparkling blue eyes. He seemed to recognize her. So this is the one Remus told me about, he thought to himself. Harry noticed his godfather's distraction and instantly smiled. That's Professor S, the new Dada teacher at Hogwarts, and that's KAGOME. She's one of our best friends. Best? Harry blushed. She is staying here because of Voldemort reasons too. But she won't tell us why. He said, disappointed. I see. He continued ponder where he had seen her before. He closed his eyes but still could not place his finger on it. He shrugged it off and went over to the two. Hello, I'm Sirius Black. The girl smiled, stood up and bowed. My name is KAGOME Higurashi. It's a pleasure to meet you. The man that Harry said was Professor S stood himself up and shook Sirius's hand. I have heard many great things about you. Really? Well, you must quite the defense against the dark arts teacher if you haven't left yet. I and KAGOME are quite the new wizards, actually. This is out first year of magic. Oh, well, I still hope you are enjoying Hogwarts. KAGOME smiled gently and excused herself. She walked over to Hermione and instantly began chatting with her. Sirius still couldn't help but wonder. Where had he seen her before her? P.S. There are going to be 23 chapters total in this story. But don't fret. I'll give more details in Chappie 23. Question. The following number is the only one of its kind. 8,549,176,320. Can you figure out what is so special about it? No one. Will she be able to complete the task that was given to her long ago? The stars touch everyone's heart. KAGOME sighed and picked up the Shirkan jewel. She gently placed it around her neck and looked at herself in the mirror. Again she saw Kikyo instead of herself. Even with her old-school uniform on, she didn't see herself. What's happening to me? She muttered to herself. Hey Kags, are you okay? There was only one person she knew that would call her Kags. I'm fine Shippo, I'm just thinking about the feudal era. Ah come on KAGOME. It's so boring when you upset. So why don't you laugh a bit? He immediately began tickling her, causing her to giggle uncontrollably. As they continued to play around, there came a knock on the door. Are you sure you two aren't going out or anything? Asked a red Ron. KAGOME was the first to react.
You groß Ron.
He's just my favorite teacher and one of my best friends. Yes, Mr. Weasley. There is nothing going on between me and Miss Higurashi. KAGOME quickly muttered, knowing that Shippo would hear her. Drop the formalities or he will get suspicious. Well, whatever. Ron began eyeing them suspiciously. Mad, I wanted me to tell you guys that we'll be leaving for Hogwarts in an hour. Thanks, Ron. Chirped KAGOME. Yes, thanks, Ron, repeated Shippo. KAGOME giggled and picked up her trunk. She carefully dragged it down the stairs while Shippo just levitated his behind her. You cheater. You could have done it too. Oh, I get it, Mr. Big Bad Demon is getting weak, eh? I'll show you weak. He picked up both his trunk and hers. Thanks. She piped in and tauntingly skipped down the rest of the stairs. Realizing his mistake, he called after her. Who's cheating now, huh? But alas, no answer came to him. He set the trunks by the curb where they would soon be taking the night bus back to Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. You know what you must do? A cold voice disturbed the peace of the surrounding. Yes, my lord, replied an emotionless voice from behind the screen. Long raven black hair draping down as she bowed lowly to the ground. When will you get them? Soon, my lord. Good, then get going. Yes, Lord Voldemort. His dream faded out and he slowly opened his eyes. Blinking a few times, Harry stumbled out of bed onto the hardwood floor. He changed out of his warm pajamas and into jeans and a t-shirt. He quickly made his way out of the boys' dorm and into the common room. Good morning, Harry, said a perky KAGOME. The girl from his dream flashed before his eyes and he stumbled back at the sudden image. Are you okay, Harry? You look kind of pale? She placed an hand on his forehead. He slightly blushed at their contact. You don't feel warm. It's nothing. He stumbled onto the couch where KAGOME joined him. He kept glancing at KAGOME and she noticed. She gave him a puzzled look and he turned his head saying it was nothing. She smiled at him. You two look like childhood sweethearts, Ron said as he sat in one of the huge armchairs. They blushed and found the floor quite interesting. Nonsense, and besides you and Hermione look like a married couple who just argue all the time. Shot back KAGOME. This caused Ron to blush. Now who's talking nonsense? KAGOME glared at Ron. He tried to glaring back but failed miserably. Sighing at his defeat, he turned to Harry, who began glancing at KAGOME again. Ron rose an eyebrow at this. Harry quickly got up and started up the steps back into the boys' dorm, but motioned Ron to come as well. He quickly scampered up the stairs after Harry, leaving a puzzled KAGOME on the couch. Harry quickly told Ron about the strange dream he had last night. Ron sat for a moment. So you think KAGOME is out to get us? I don't know, Ron. If she is, then we have but our trust in our own enemy. But if she isn't, then we're assuming for the worst. Maybe we should get Hermione. She might know. All right, we'll tell her to meet us in the abandoned girls' room. Ron nodded and quickly took a quill and parchment. Scribbling a quick note, he pocketed it and stood up. Now let's go, I'm starving. Harry and Ron kept their eye on KAGOME all throughout breakfast. KAGOME continued to notice their sudden fascination for her and stood up. Is there something wrong? You've done nothing but watch me all throughout breakfast. So could you please tell me? Ron took this as his chance for him to slip the note into Hermione's bag. Careful so that she wouldn't notice, he tossed it in and straightened back up. KAGOME was twitching with frustration now. Nothing's wrong, Harry stated simply and continued to eat. KAGOME sighed, grabbed her bag, and turned toward Hermione. I'm going to Professor S class early. I'll see you there. She angrily walked out of the Great Hall. Hermione turned to them. What is your problem? Ever since this morning you both haven't talked to her, but instead kept staring at her. Harry stood up, followed by Ron. Just check your bag, Harry replied. Alone. Hermione watched them leave and opened her bag. Inside was a piece of folded parchment. She quickly opened the note and read, Hermione, Harry and I want you to meet us in the girls' bathroom abandoned to ask your opinion about something. Meet us at dinner. And don't tell or bring KAGOME with you. Ron. Hermione sighed and folded back up the note. She got up and went to class. There she began her long wait of wondering what the hell they could want to tell her and not KAGOME. Especially Harry. All right, now what do you two want? Hermione asked. Harry nodded to Ron, who was standing by the door, and he quickly thrust his head outside the door and looked around for a few moments, then quickly pulled it back in and nodded back to Harry. Hermione rolled her eyes. You two dumb bums, what do you want? At least we're smart dumb bums, added Ron. Anyway, Harry told Hermione about the dream, complete with detail. Hermione thought a moment before she said, What's your point? Well, do you think KAGOME is out to get us? She is pretty mysterious and keeps to herself a bit. Ron added, Are you two crazy? How could you think that KAGOME would be out to get us all? She's our best friend. Why in the world? Excuse me? What are you guys doing in here? KAGOME was sitting at the entrance door, eyebrow raised. Hey KAGOME, what are you doing here? Or how did you find us? Call it a hunch. But what are you two doing in the girls' room? Indicating Harry and Ron. It's a place we come to get away from certain people who didn't know about it, said Harry. Oh, well, I can take a hint. I'll be leaving. KAGOME, that's not what we meant. No, don't worry about it. KAGOME began walking to the door. KAGOME, wait, started Hermione. She looked at Harry and Ron with a you should be ashamed of yourself look. I'll be going with you. KAGOME smiled and they walked off. I hate to say this, but I think I need to see Professor Snape. Ron looked at him with utter disbelief. You can't be serious, can you? Harry nodded. It's been a while since I've seen him anyway. Let me get this straight, Potter. You want me to give you a quick lesson in occlumency? Harry nodded. All right, but I don't see why I should. Legilimens, cried Snape and shot the attack at Harry. Harry fell to the ground and groaned in pain. Snape saw Harry's dream flash before his eyes. Harry quickly scrambled on his feet, drawing in deep breaths. I know you are better at this now. So I take it you wanted me to see this? Harry nodded again. Why? Why did you want me to see such an intriguing dream? Well, I wanted to ask you something. Do you think it's something real from Voldemort or just a dream? What do you think it is? Well, I think it could happen. So you believe it as a premonition? No, yes, I don't know. Do you think you know who the girl is? She reminded me of KAGOME. But I don't want to believe it's her. Then I remembered you worked for him for a while. So I thought you might know. Well, I don't. So you'll just have to be on your own. While Harry was with Snape, how did you know we were down there? I'm a Miko, remember? I can sense auras. Oh yes, I remember now. You must be well trained as a Miko. Actually, not really. I had to learn out of experience. Riddle. The green glass door is a mystery. Tell me 3 things that can go through it and you get a preview for the next chapter. But you also must leave your email if you think you have the answer. Blade of Fire and Gingialibel Lover. The following may not be used for this round of the riddle. Green, glass, door, and plotty. Disclaimer 2. I do not own the song used in this chapter. It belongs to someone else. But it's one of my favorite songs anyway. Will she be able to complete the task that was given to her long ago? The stars touch everyone's hearts. So do you have a date yet? You of all people should know I'm done with dating. Besides, I've already got plans for Valentine's Day. Oh really? What would that be? That's really none of your concern. But you'll find out soon. Whatever you say. Well, who's your date? Shippo blushed. There aren't any foxes for me around here, you know that. So you don't have one. Course not. Miss Higurashi. KAGOME and Shippo both looked towards the Defense Against the Dark Arts entrance to see Professor Dumbledore. He slowly walked inside and sat himself in Shippo's teaching chair. Miss Higurashi, he continued, are you still up for the job tomorrow on Valentine's Day? Just one, right? Correct. Then of course I still will. Well, I'm going to leave now. By Headmaster Sayonara Shippo. She quickly ran down the corridors, leaving Shippo and Dumbledore to discuss future events. Hoping she hasn't raised any suspicions, She slipped into the dining room and sat down next to Hermione. KAGOME made sure she didn't lock eyes with Ron or especially Harry after what happened in the girls' bathroom. Harry still hadn't come up with the courage to apologize and KAGOME hasn't forgiven them. And Hermione is still upset that Ron and Harry could suggest that KAGOME was out to get them. Well. What do we have here? Battle of the sexes? Crabbe and Goyle laughed at Malfoy's comment. Shut up, Malfoy, seethed an already angry Harry. You four have been at each other's necks all week. But that's not the real reason I'm here. I'm here because I've heard that Higurashi's big debut. Shut up, Draco. KAGOME whispered quietly. Don't choke, okay, Higurashi. KAGOME sat quietly as Malfoy and his minions laughed as they left the Great Hall. Harry, Ron and Hermione looked at KAGOME questioningly. Hermione was the first to speak. What's wrong, KAGOME? Yeah, you're usually the one who gives Draco a slap down. Added in Ron. It's nothing. She grabbed her bag and quickly walked out of the Great Hall. Ron and Hermione watched her leave and then turned to look at Harry. What? Why didn't you say something? Why should I have? I can't believe you're acting like this. She's your friend. You started acting like this right after you hooked up with Cho Chang. What's more important, your friends or your girlfriend? When Hermione got no answer, she picked up her things and left as well. She has a point, mate. You should really think about it. He too got up and left, leaving Harry to think about the question that they left him to ponder. It was getting dark and she knew she should go back inside the castle. She didn't know if Hermione, Ron, or Harry neither came looking for her, nor did she care. She slid down from the tree branch she had placed herself in all day. She slowly walked to the castle knowing she'd be in trouble for skipping all of her classes today, and she already knew Shippo would be worried. But she didn't care. She needed to think. She hid her aura and scent so no one could have found her. It was one of those times that she loved being a Miko. Hermione watched Professor Espace across the room of the Dada classroom. I'm sure she's fine, she reassured him. Still, why would she just leave? She was having an off day. She seemed fine this morning. Aren't you a demon though? Can't you sniff her out? This is one of those times I hate that she's a Miko. She hid her scent and aura. Don't get your panties in a twist. Came KAGOME's voice from the door. Where were you? Shippo shouted. Calm down, I just need to think. I just came to tell you I'm fine. I'm going to be now. Shippo growled. Get back here. I'll see you tomorrow. She shouted back at him. Shippo growled again. I'll never understand her. Hermione nodded at his comment. At Valentine's Day dance. So where's KAGOME? Asked Harry. What do you care? You're here with me, remember? Said Cho before Hermione or Ron could answer. We don't know. She said she didn't have a date and she had other plans. Answered Hermione, ignoring Cho's statement. So who's your date, Hermione? Asked Cho, trying to change the subject. Hermione blushed. Ron. She quietly answered, causing Harry to chuckle at this. Many people were dancing to the CDs and enchanted instruments along with Harry and Cho, and Hermione and Ron. The teachers watched the students from the side. Soon there came the voice of Dumbledore on stage. Attention students. We are pleased to announce that we have one live performance tonight. Please welcome to the stage Miss KAGOME Higurashi. Many started whispering and our usually heroic trio stood shocked. They waited to see her come on stage. She suddenly appeared with a red tank top on and a short white skirt. Whistles came from the boys in the audience along with many slaps from their dates. She took a deep breath and began. And you don't have to read if you don't want to. This happens to be my favorite song. When you walk away you don't hear me say, please, oh baby don't go, simple and clean is the way that you're making me feel tonight, it's hard to let it go. You're giving me too many things. Lately, you're all I need. You smiled at me and said, don't get me wrong, I love you, but does that mean I have to meet your father? When we are older you'll understand what I meant when I said no. I don't think life is quite that simple when you walk away. You don't hear me say, please, oh baby don't go, simple and clean is the way that you're making me feel tonight, it's hard to let it go. The daily things, like this and that and what's what, that keep us all busy are confusing me. That's when you came to me and said, wish I could prove I love you, but does that mean I have to walk on water? When we are older you'll understand it's enough when I say so, and maybe some things are that simple when you walk away. You don't hear me say, please, Oh baby, don't go, simple and clean is the way that you're making me feel tonight, it's hard to let it go. Hold me, whatever lies beyond this morning is a little later on. Regardless of warnings, the future doesn't scare me at all, nothing's like before. When you walk away you don't hear me say, please, oh baby, don't go, simple and clean is the way that you're making me feel tonight, it's hard to let it go. Hold me, whatever lies beyond this morning is a little later on. Regardless of warnings, the future doesn't scare me at all, nothing's like before. Hold me, whatever lies beyond this morning is a little later on. Regardless of warnings, the future doesn't scare me at all, nothing's like before. She put the mic back on the stand and bowed. Thank you, she stated in a hushed voice. She rushed off the stage. Hermione was the first to start clapping. Then the rest of the school followed after, causing KAGOME to stop in her tracks and blush. Hermione and Ron rushed over to her. You were wonderful, Hermione exclaimed. Thanks, she whispered. What's gotten into you, Kag? You've been quiet for a while, said Ron. Have I? Is there something wrong? KAGOME's eyes flashed for a moment, then she calmed down. No, nothing. Okay, said a not too convinced Hermione. Maybe she's upset she doesn't have a date. Or maybe she doesn't have that emotion, love.
Cho commented.
KAGOME glared at Cho. You know what? You've been nothing but a bitch to me since we met. Do you have a problem with me, or something? Watch who you're calling a bitch. Bitch, what did you call me? KAGOME growled out. Hey, what's going on? Harry had just stepped up with some punch in hand. He stared at the two girls glaring at each other, one growling. Cho was the first to take Harry's presence to her advantage. Oh, Harry darling, your so-called friend called me a bitch. Why would she do such a thing when all I've done is treat her with friendliness the whole time she's been here? KAGOME rolled her eyes at Cho's comment. Harry looked from his girlfriend to his best friend. Did you really call her a bitch? KAGOME stared down at the ground. Yes, but what? I can't believe you, KAGOME. How could you do that? How can you believe her fake sob story like that? She's been rude to me my whole stay at Hogwarts. Besides, she called me a bitch back. But you started it. That's because of the smart-ass comment she made to me before you showed up. Harry turned to KAGOME. Maybe she's right. Maybe you haven't had a love life and don't know what to do at times like this, so you get jealous and threw a fit. KAGOME was seething with rage and tears began to fall from her sapphire eyes. You know nothing about me or my love life. She ran out of the great hall, leaving one couple to stare astonished at another. Harry, darling, I'm gonna go fix my makeup. Be back in a sec. Hermione waited until Cho was out of hearing range and out of sight before she turned with anger-filled eyes toward Harry. Harry James Potter, what were you thinking? How you say something like that to KAGOME? Well, she degraded Cho. He whispered. Who's more important, Cho or KAGOME? Harry didn't respond. That's what I figured. You have no room to talk about KAGOME's love life or life for that matter. And neither does Cho. With that said, Hermione stomped out of the great hall. Ron looked at Harry with what looked like shame on you eyes. You've really done it this time, mate. Smooth. He then turned and left after Hermione. Harry walked to the edge of the great hall and slumped down in a chair. He lowered his head and decided that he needed to think. Cho slowly stumbled over to Harry and stood next to him, waiting for him to get out of his thinking trance. With KAGOME, she ran as fast as she could. She didn't want to see him. When she got tired, she pushed herself to go further. Her tears hit the ground as she ran. When she finally was too tired to go any further, she collapsed against a tree. She took in deep breaths of air and took in her surrounding. It was dark, and noticed the many other trees around her beside the one she was leaning against. It all came to one conclusion. She was in the forbidden forest. She sighed and closed her eyes. As she sat, there came the sound of soft footprints on the grass coming towards her. She quickly stood up. Who's there? She shouted. There came a soft smirk from behind the tree next to her. A figure stepped out. Who are you? Whispered KAGOME. I am the one who will reunite you with your past. KAGOME stared at the figure, confused at their words. But suddenly they chanted something under their breath and there came a bright flash. KAGOME, blinded by the light, closed her eyes. When she reopened them, she saw nothing but trees, but could hear shouts coming from her lefts. She pushed aside the bushes and low branches and stopped at what she saw in front of her. She quickly hid herself behind a bush and continued to listen to the conversation. What the hell were you thinking? You had no right to do such an act. How could you? We trusted you. Are you finished? Shouted an angered voice. There was no reply. Good. Now I'm gonna go spend the rest of my life with the person I really love. She could hear them all leave the clearing in the forest. She stood up and stared at the middle. There sat an old well used for time travel. She couldn't believe it, she was back in the feudal era. Riddle. Again. Name 3 things that can go through the green glass door. P.S. Don't forget to review. Will she be able to complete the task that was given to her long ago? The stars touch everyone's hearts. KAGOME took a deep breath and thought to herself, it'll be okay. You're just back in the feudal era for some odd reason, and it's all thanks to that cloaked dude. Life will go on. You just have to jump back down the well. She looked around to make sure no one was around. She concealed her aura and scent, and ran. She ran as fast as she could towards the well and leaped in. Landing on the ground face first, she groaned in pain. I forgot I sealed the well. She mumbled to herself, I guess I was a little mad at him. She slowly made her way out of the well and began walking towards Keed's village. I hope I remember where I'm going. She stopped suddenly and looked down. I really need to stop talking to myself. That's when she noticed what she was wearing. She was still wearing a red tank top and white miniskirt. Talk about suspicious. Good thing she was a witch now. She glanced around herself and sighed. A witch without a wand. KAGOME groaned at her new predicament. Before she got a new idea, maybe she could do magic without a wand. She closed her eyes and stretched her arms out in front of her, focusing the energy to her hands, along with slight Miko energy, and said, Cambiare. Clathes. Change clothes. In Latin she imagined a white haori and a black pair of hakamas. She opened her eyes and looked down. Her outfit was there. She grinned at her own accomplishment and continued towards the village. While walking she tied up her hair in a high ponytail just like Sango's, just in case she raised any other suspicions. She continued to walk towards the village, dodging low tree branches and any demons that popped out of nowhere. There were different remarks that she heard regarding the jewel that still hung hidden beneath her haori that she had yet to conceal. Her favorite one so far was "Give me the jewel. My parararararicious." This one caused her to giggle since it reminded her of the popular movie of the golem in Middle-earth. As she arrived, she decided that it might be wise to finally conceal the aura of the jewel. Seeing as Miroku, Inuyasha, or even her incarnate Kikyo causing a look of utter disgust take over her facial features at the thought of her name might be able to sense it still. If Inuyasha or Kikyo were still on this earth, she continued to walk forward, causing many heads to turn her way. Of course by now she was used to it. Always being stared at, that is. So what made this time any different? She was greeted by Keed, the older priestess of the village, Sango, her best friend the demon exterminator, and Miroku, the ever-lecherous monk. What is ye business in our village? Said an ever-suspicious Keed. KAGOME grinned. I'm here to see this famous Shirkan group all the villages talk about. I wanted to meet them myself. Sango eyed her suspiciously. And what is your name, stranger? Name? She hadn't thought about a different name. My name is... She continued to think. The first name that came to mind was Harry. Now why would she be thinking of Harry at a time like this? It was after all partly his fault she was stuck here again. When she got back she was going to, Your name, miss? It was Sango who interrupted her thought. She sounded very annoyed with her. My name is... She started, concentrating once again. My name is... Nea. She practically shouted. Happy that she had finally found a name. Nea? Questioned Miroku, raising an eyebrow at this. It's a family name. It was my mother's as well. Although her name wasn't Nea, her mother's name was. And if Inuyasha was still around, she hoped that he hadn't found out. And Nea, said Sango as if testing the name, are you a Miko? She indicated at her clothes. Actually, I'm just in training. I do know a few things here and there. She replied, grinning. So why exactly are you wanting to meet the Shirkan group? Well, KAGOME said, I found the quite interesting. Especially the variety of species, should I say. Or special talents. Well, I hate to break it to you, but the Shirkan group is no more. We had a few problems. And I and Moroku are the only ones left. KAGOME glanced around, seeing many villagers watching them now. She turned back to Sango. Even the Kitsune Kit? She nodded. Yes, he ran away after our original Miko left. We haven't heard from since, she said in a sad voice. I see, KAGOME replied quietly. Looks like I'm stuck here, she thought. Well, do you mind if I stay here? I won't be able to return home for a while. Sango looked at Moroku, who just shrugged. Then she turned to Keed, who hesitated before she nodded slowly. Sango turned back to KAGOME and smiled. Yep, I think you can. All right. So do I get to stay with you guys? I don't see why not. After all, Moroku and I are also technically foreigners here as well. Okay. To the hut. She began walking to the hut until Moroku stopped her. How did you know this is the hut we are staying in?
Aha.
I saw you guys come out when I came. Moroku eyed her suspiciously, then opened the thin straw curtain that separated their hut from the outside world and said, Welcome to our hut. Harry walked through the portrait into the Gryffindor common room. They had just gotten back from classes, and today they had double potions with the Slytherin, and of course extra homework. And to top it all off, KAGOME hadn't shown up for any of her classes. Harry sat down in a chair at the table and sighed. He suddenly heard footsteps come down from the girls' dormitories. He saw an upset Hermione. What's wrong? Hermione sent him a glare. What do you care? She said angrily. Look, you were right. I don't have room to talk about KAGOME's life. And neither does Cho. Now tell me what's wrong. Hermione's angry look turned into a worried one. KAGOME's gone. She isn't in the dormitory, the girls' bathroom, the room of requirement, or anywhere. Well, where could she be? He said with a slight hint of worry in his own voice. I don't. She was interrupted with a bang. The portrait had swung open to reveal a red-faced Professor S. He ran over to Hermione with such speed that Harry didn't even see him move. Where is she? He said angrily. Hermione began to cry. I don't know. I've looked absolutely everywhere. So have I. When I began looking for her, there were traces of her scent leaving the Great Hall into the Forbidden Forest and then just disappeared. The scent was old though, maybe from last night. What happened? He roared. She left after Cho said that she probably had never had a love life and Harry took Cho's defense. Shippo growled loudly. That bitch. Harry quickly stood up. That's my girlfriend you just called a bitch, he yelled. Do you always talk to your teachers like that? And besides, you even took that bitch's defense. You know nothing of KAGOME. You're right, I don't. But that doesn't give you the right to call Cho a bitch. You're a teacher, you shouldn't say that either. You human could never understand. Hermione slapped her hand over her mouth. Professor S looked at her for a second, then his eyes widened. Harry looked at them. Are you saying that you aren't human? Professor S sighed. I suppose I can tell you, but you can't repeat this to anyone. Harry nodded his head. Okay, I'm a demon, a fox demon to be more precise. My name is Shippo. Harry's mouth hung open. You're a demon? Yes, now if you don't mind, I need to find KAGOME. Shippo began to walk towards the portrait, until Harry called after him. I might have something that could help, but it won't work if she's left Hogwarts. Shippo eyed him, then nodded. Harry went upstairs and dug through his trunk until he saw a blank piece of parchment. He brought it down to Shippo. He pulled out his wand and recited, taping the parchment. I solemnly swear I am up to no good. A map of Hogwarts quickly unfolded before them along with many dots moving about it with names hovering above them. Harry quickly explained the Marauder's map and they began looking for KAGOME's dot. When they couldn't find it, they sat up and sighed. Hermione began crying and muttering that something had to be wrong if she was gone. Shippo sat in deep thought, growling every now and then. Harry lowered his head and covered his eyes with his hands. It's all my fault, he muttered. It's my fault KAGOME is gone. I'd like to thank all of my loyal reviewers. I love you all so much, especially the Lightened Darkness. Thanks for the chappy. Makes me cry tears. The following list is off all the people who ever reviewed. Otakuways Blubba Bubba, Jingle Bell Lover, Soramiko Inuyasha, 520 Inukag Forever. Michelle and Summers, Corporate Lullabies, Make Yourself Duo, Roaring Winds Cousin.
Lilbun fufu sinadoi 27 I cousin Jennifer Dimwit Puffin. Anime Alex 36 Froggeisrkol Pale Maiden.
Inumiko Tenshi Faint Scent. Mishcerniety Kill All Flommers. Blood Rose Ot Demon. Person obsessed with Glomps Mandy.
Fornax Angeloflight Goddess Bless Demonic Brat.
Bism Inuyasha Kagome Anonymous. Lady Psyche Sailor Saturn 550 Emikamaru. American Puppy 842 Flamingo Moon Twin Cats.
Catarina Nonofiobis Sara Longangel 88 Angel Shovspeasi Water Trainer.
Girl.
Angel dos Joukai Ikari no Miko Nikki Misato Aeris.
Kitsunikalo Mimim Anime Duchess. Goddess of Life and Death X White XSTRX Cutie Carry 01. Inu Pupliver. Suma Goddess of Darkness Kagome Potter Fan. Addicted to Inu Rock'n'Roll 7806 Karara Goddess Blade of Fire Thabacklishwave Tai. Micah 3 Fuzainu RS Crimson Eyes 7806 Greygranian Kagome with Tears in 2 Love Matching. Angel Demoness 7 Shangxiang 10 Dreaming Blue Flames Miko. 2 Good Kitsune Miko Tenshi. And of course the Lightened Darkness. If there is anyone I forgot, let me know, okay? Thanks again to all my reviewers. I'll try to update soon. And I know you can't hear me, but happy birthday Mat. Will she be able to complete the task that was given to her long ago? The stars touch everyone's heart. Mr. Malfoy, I would appreciate it if you wouldn't call my students names. What do you care if that mudblood isn't here? 100 points from Slytherin. What? That's unfair. 1 week of detention for you too. Please, Professor. I know you are worried and upset, but don't take it out on the students even if it is the Slytherins. Hermione noticed Shippo's demonic features flashing. But no one really noticed except for Hermione and Harry, who now knew his secret. But Harry still didn't know about the relationship between Kagome and Shippo. I thought he deserved it, muttered Ron. Ron still didn't know about Shippo. Who knows what might happen if he did. The bell sounded all across Hogwarts, signaling the end of class. The students stood up and Shippo sat down. I would like Harry and Hermione to stay after class. Shippo noticed Ron looking from Harry to Hermione to himself and so forth. Sighing, he said, I suppose Ron may stay as well. The 3 of them stood around his desk, but he directed his words toward Harry and Hermione. I spoke with Aragog. You mean that thing is still alive? Interrupted a whimpering Ron. Yes, and quite healthy. Now, I spoke with Aragog. He has information on Kagome's disappearance. Harry's eyes lit up. You mean he knows where she is? What happened? Tell me. Harry, calm down. Hermione said. Although she wanted to find out herself, the sooner he's quiet, the sooner they'll find out. Harry nodded toward her, and then directed his attention back towards Shippo. I tried to see what Grop knew because he was right next to the scene, but I couldn't really understand him. So I turned to Aragog. He said that there was someone else was in the forest with Kagome. The only thing we know is that that other person was female. One of Aragog's spiders was able to bite her. But unfortunately we couldn't extract the blood to find out who exactly it was. So we're still pretty much at a loss as to what exactly happened. Aragog didn't know anything else? Spiders can't see very well even if they have 8 eyes. But we are also at another loss. Where did she go? Well, Hermione started, she couldn't have apparat. You can't apparate on Hogwarts grounds. We know, Harry and Ron both said simultaneously. Well, what does that leave? Portal, replied Shippo. You certainly are a good cook, Miss Nea. Moroku had finished another bowl of soup Nea had prepared. Sango hadn't said a word to her about the soup, but Nea understood why. Perhaps it reminded her of her own cooking as Kagome. Besides, Nea was Kagome after all, so of course Nea would remind her of Kagome. Thanks, Moroku, but just call me Kanea. Nea started stirring the soup faster. Upset, she almost gave herself away. Nea sighed and sat down. She definitely had to be careful about her powers and giving herself away. They'd been called to 3 different villages today along to exterminate demons, and each time she slightly used her powers and had to stop herself each time. So of course they, meaning Sango and Moroku, were getting suspicious. Especially Sango. So Sango, Nea, started trying to start a conversation. Where's Karara? How'd you know about Karara? She asked, inching toward her giant boomerang bone by which she called Hirakatsu.
Szkoły podstawowej.
Nea, noticing this, replied, there was a young girl in my old village. which you saved from a raging boar demon that admired her and did nothing but talk about her. Oh, and what village would that be? KAGOME never really learned the name of the villages while staying before. She just remembered landmarks and faces. Let me get some more water to boil for the soup, she replied, walking out the door. Moroku sighed. So what do you think of her? I think she's a stalker of our group, snarled out Sango. What do you think, Moroku? I'm not sure, but she reminds me a lot of KAGOME. Moroku picked up another bowl of soup. Especially her cooking. I don't know. Maybe we could put her through a test. It's worth a shot. With KAGOME. KAGOME dipped a bucket into the stream where she once bathed, making her remember her times with Inuyasha. She sighed. Something wrong, Nea? Sango placed her hand on her shoulder. Maybe we should go to a hot spring. KAGOME squealed. Just like when we used. KAGOME quickly cut herself off. Sango raised an eyebrow and KAGOME immediately gulped. Just like we used to what? Well, you see. Before, when I was traveling, my friend and I would go to the hot springs together all the time, along with another little boy. Oh really? KAGOME nodded. It'll be nice because I haven't been to one in a while. Well then let's go. Now? Yes, right now, while that lecherous monk Moroku doesn't know. Yeah, he always was. She stopped herself again. Was what? I heard he was quite the pervert. That he would grope women and ask for them to bear their child. KAGOME, trying to get away, started walking towards the hot spring, Sango quickly trailing behind. Upon arrival, she quickly stripped and slipped into the water. Sango followed, while glancing at Nea's shoulder. You're KAGOME, aren't you? KAGOME felt her face go red. I don't know what you're talking about. You are. There are 3 reasons. First, you had never been to this village before, so how did you know where the hot spring was? Second, only KAGOME could cook that good. And 3, the scar on your shoulder. Inuyasha told us after you left that he nicked you real good on the shoulder. Pissed me off too. How do you know I've never been here before? And besides, anyone could have a scar on their shoulder, so there. True, but Keed knows everyone that comes into her village. At this point, KAGOME knew she was busted. She blushed in embarrassment. You see, I knew it. Sango quickly embraced her sister. Why didn't you just tell us? 'Cause I knew I'd have to leave. So I didn't want to get reattached. But we missed you so much. We thought we'd never see you again. Tears streamed down Sango's face, adding to the hot spring. Sango, I had no idea. I'm so sorry. Sango let go. As long as you're here now. KAGOME hit her. But that's just it. I have to find a way home. I'm on a different adventure, if you want to call it that. No. You can't leave. You just can't. We thought you were dead after the way that monster described everything. We had trusted him. And then you showed back up. Shoo. Sango, it'll be okay. She hugged her friend again. Now let's just enjoy the time while I'm here. Sango nodded. I guess you're right. Besides, we need to tell Moroku that you're KAGOME. Although I'm sure he already knows. The 2 girls giggled and continued to relax in the spring. How could that impudent wench have returned? She should have died 500 years ago. But, you did your job? The raven-haired girl bowed. Yes, my lord. Hopefully she will never find her way back to Hogwarts. If she did, having her and that Potter boy there, it would be even harder to take over. Maybe we should have sent the Potter boy there as well. Thank you for the wonderful reminder, Kagura, said the oh-so-sarcastic Dark Lord. But might I mention that it took a human girl to dispose of the Miko and 2 demons couldn't do it? Well, you must also remember that she can't purify a human as easily as she could purify a demon. Silence. He squeezed something in his bony hand, causing Kagura to clench where her heart should be. I'm tired of your rude remarks. Now leave me. The demon stood up and walked toward the door, muttering, I'm tired of you. Harry awoke, rubbing his scar. He was tired of having these lousy dreams, if that's what he wanted to call them. He started to think about it. He recognized the one called Kagura as one of the people here, along with the little albino girl that stole his soul. He shuddered at remembering that. But she seemed like she didn't like Lord Voldemort. Then there was still the other girl. Harry began to feel bad about thinking that KAGOME was the girl, because they obviously must have been talking about KAGOME. But Miko? What the heck was that? Didn't KAGOME say that was what she was for Halloween? He began to message his temple in frustration. I suppose I'll have to tell Shippo about it, he muttered to himself. Or maybe, I'll write serious. He quietly got up and began to write a letter. Dear Snuffles, how are you? I'm fine except that I've been having dreams about KAGOME's relationship to Voldemort. He says that she's a Miko or something like that. Should tell Professor S or Snape. Write back, your godson, Harry. He quickly reread it, of course noticing that it was short, and put his quill down in satisfaction. Carefully putting it in an envelope he addressed it and made his way to the Ollery. When he got there, he saw Hedwig cuddled up next to KAGOME's comet. His heart began to throb at the thought of KAGOME. Coaxing his snow-white owl down, he tied the letter around its leg. I need you to take this to Sirius, okay? She hooted in understanding and took off. Harry watched her fly off into the rising sun towards Grimmauld Place. Sighing, he turned around to see a cloaked figure. Who are you? That is of no importance to you. Harry could tell the voice was female. He recognized it too. But whose voice could it be? What do you want? He asked suspiciously. It's not what I want, but what I have to do. In the flick of their wrist, she created a swirling pool of different colors. Before Harry could do anything, she moved behind him and pushed him into it. He closed his eyes as he plummeted through the colors and landed somewhere with a thump. Opening his eyes, he took in his new surroundings. Trees. Tons of them. Sighing, he got up and walked. He soon found himself in a small clearing with a well in the center. He began walking through the clearing when trees suddenly came crashing down and revealed a hideous-looking thing. He was green with purple warts all over his body. His eyes were red and horns came from his head. The thing brought his claws down, cutting Harry's robes. Running, he thought, where the bloody hell am I? The light in the darkness. Yep. I finally updated. Woohoo! And the title name was a true shocker. Dun. And thanks so much for the chapter dedication. Kitsune Miko Tenshi. Thanks. Goddess bless. Thanks. Frogizercole. Okay. To answer questions. Why is KAGOME not telling anyone who she is? Well, I kind of said it in this chapter. When is Harry going to find out that Shippo is KAGOME's son? You also have to remember that Shippo is adopted-ish. She also doesn't want rumors flying around. Is Inu dead? No. You'll have to see what happens next chapter. Blade of Fire. I'll try to make the chapters longer. Michelle and Summers. Evil's my middle name. I'm updating as soon as I can. Otakulways. They had their suspicions about her identity. And they were right. Too good. I'm trying to make the chapters longer. Miko. Thanks. Dreaming Blue Flames. You have more now. And we'll have more to come. Shangxiang Ten. Thanks. Regretfully yours, Cassie-chan. You don't sound demanding. You guys deserve it after I made you wait so long. Anime Duchess. How is KAGOME going to get home? That's a secret, my friend. Jingle Bell Lover. 'Cause it's fun. Nuno Fiorbis. Your reviews are funny. Meeting Reality. Thanks so much. Lildemongrel 001. Carrara come with her? I'll have to think about it. I mean, I haven't really come up with a way for her in the story. Other than Sango's partner, F-A-R-I-E-F-A-H. So many things happen to Shippo. The light in the darkness. Thanks. I hate it when I lose stuff, but I'm glad I found it. And support is something I can do. I absolutely like your story. Shangxiang Ten. I looked very hard, and you know what? It turned out to be in the front office at my school. I hope no one read it. Azaria. You'll find out who sent KAGOME back in the sequel. I haven't decided if it'll be a sequel or just continue on with the story in the same title. What do you think? Miko. Don't worry, I'm updating. Clicks the button. See? I updated. And you know what? You already read it. Muwahahaha. Anime Duchess. No. Just Harry. As you've already read. Inupupliver. Hee. Make sure you don't break your laptop by squeezing it that tight. Sminky. Don't worry, I found it. And I don't think I want to see you angry either. And I think I checked out your story. But I can't remember. Sorry. The Backlash Wave. Sounds cool because I love Newgrounds. But I don't know how to do something like that. Airwalk 55. That's okay. I'll eat the sandwiches. Yum. Froggiesicle. Yep, you are on the list. I hope I put everyone on it. Thanks for your review. Angel 2 Yukai. Thanks. And I'm glad I found it. Hannah. Thanks. Meeting reality. He. Thanks. UPDATE your story.
Jingle Belluver. Ok.
Chrissy. Thanks. I will. Will she be able to complete the task that was given to her long ago? The light in the darkness. Thanks. You always make me feel so special. Nice update, by the way. Your story is so different. That makes it really good.
Regretful yours Kassihan. I'm updating ASAP.
Meeting reality. You know I can't tell you what happens. But thanks for reviewing. Angela Flight. You'll find out the answers to all your questions in this chapter. Otaku always. Thanks for the enthusiasm. Really inspired me. Nuno Fiorbis. Yep, definitely got ours reserved. I found out a long time ago. Then I told my whole family. And we were second on the reservation list. Shangxiang 10. Thanks. Updated. Now, Chibes. That is okay. Nice to have another reviewer.
Anthropomorphizer. Tehe.
Here's the next chappie. Anime Duchess. Yeah. I think I said that in a different chapter. Definitely HK story. It's different and uncommon. Which is why I'm doing it. Inuyasha Queen. Thanks. You're sweet. Kitsune Miko Tenshi. Thanks. Tom Fan. Thanks. And I'll do as many chapters as necessary. The Backlash Wave. Thank you and thank you for shouting. Anonymous name. Hello. And twank you. Tania. Why thank you. I update when I can. Willow Starshine. There will be lots to come. Storywriter 10791. Thank you. I do my best. Shadowhunter 01. Well, thank you. And you'll find out it's not exactly a Kikyo Inuyasha FIC.
Avil tuilet pape. Ah.
Your name rocks. And I stopped there because I had to. Well, here's what happens next. Hoshiko Megami. Thanks. What does your name mean? Or does it? Sorry. It just interested me. An anonymous. Glad you think it's great. Heisheim 2. Thanks. Awesome name. Chibes. I know it's been a while. It just takes me a while. And awesome. I'm part of a C2? That rocks. Anime Moonlight Goddess. Will do. Fair IXF8H. Yeah, I read the 6th book. But it made me cry a lot. The stars touch everyone's heart. KAGOME. Sango burst through the hanging wooden door. What is it, Sango? And I told you to keep calling me Nea. I don't need the villagers coming up all over me with gifts saying it's a miracle you're alive. Right? Sorry. But there's a demon attacking a boy by the well. Why didn't you say so? Let's go. Harry continued to run, dodging between the tons of thousands of trees trying to escape the hideous thing chasing him. His eyes widened as he tripped on his ripped robes. Stupid thing, he muttered to himself. He threw it aside and it landed next to a very tall tree. Probably the biggest tree in the forest. Good, I'll be able to find it again. He got back up and continued to run. He soon found himself out of breath. As he tripped again, he felt a rush of wind barely miss his head along with a shout of Iron Reaver Soul Stealer. And, is that right? He looked up to see silver hair fly above him. He watched his savior land on the ground with ease. He was able to take in his appearance. Long silver hair, golden eyes, claws and dog ears? Must be another one of those things except less hideous. A lot less hideous. Faye, you should be more careful, human. He muttered thanks and got up slowly. Who are you?
Fech. I'm.
Inuyasha? The guy, or was cut off by a woman? She had long black hair tied back. Was it KAGOME? He suddenly blurted out. Where? The one he assumed was Inuyasha began frantically looking around, eyes beginning to glow red. How dare you speak that name? How dare you compare me to that wench? The woman spoke harshly. I am Kikyo, and my dear reincarnation is dead. I hope. You killed her. Harry shouted at Kikyo. He already disliked her. Her eyes held nothing but coldness. How could he possibly think that she was KAGOME? What's it to you? She doesn't know you. I've met everyone she's ever met. Inuyasha glared at him. A sound of slight jealousy in his voice. KAGOME, Sango, and Moroku ran through the forest of Inuyasha with great speed. KAGOME was ahead. Kirara was right behind her. She glanced at the god tree and came to a sudden stop. What's wrong, Lady KAGOME? KAGOME stared at the black cloak that lay on the ground. It was the pendant that struck it. It was the Gryffindor pendant. Had someone managed to get here? We've got to hurry, she said firmly. I can sense some people up ahead. She ran faster than ever. If someone from Hogwarts came here, then it obviously would have to be her fault. They would have to have been looking for her and met that same person. Which reminded her. Who was that cloaked figure? KAGOME. Sango's voice stopped her running. She motioned for KAGOME to come over to where Moroku and she were bent behind a bush and be quiet. She crawled over and peered over the bush herself. She gasped at the sight. Inuyasha, she thought his name in horrid disgust with Harry. Don't you dare touch him, you monster. She quickly covered her mouth. She concealed herself behind the bush again. Guys. She whispered to Sango and Moroku. You were supposed to shimmy. Wench. Show yourself. Inuyasha's voice roared through the small clearing, causing the birds to flock away. You shouldn't call people names, you know. Harry's voice sounded from the clearing and KAGOME groaned. He just had to provoke the evil demon, didn't he? Inuyasha growled. Prepare to die, boy. As soon as KAGOME heard this, she was out of the bush, bow drawn and arrow ready. I said don't touch him. She seethed and released the arrow. The usual blue light emitted from it and struck the half-demon in the shoulder. His cry pierced the air. While he was down, KAGOME quickly ran to Harry and hugged him tightly. Are you okay? He didn't hurt you, did he? KAGOME looked at him to see his face bright red and shaking his head ferociously. Good. Releasing Harry, she stood up and took a deep breath. What the hell are you doing here? Do you know how dangerous it is here? You could have been killed and I wouldn't have been there to help prevent it. Tears streamed down her face, red from anger. Laughing came from KAGOME's clay incarnate. It seems my dear reincarnate doesn't love my Inuyasha any longer. Good. Shouts of what? Erupted from both Inuyasha and Harry. What do you mean you don't love me? Wait, you loved me? Oh, don't you dare give me that bull, Inuyasha. You know I loved you and you mated with that thing, she said, shaking a pointing finger at Kikyo. You two should be burning in hell as we speak. KAGOME. Harry started. How could you love that monster? He tried to kill me. He wasn't always like that. He used to be so sweet and would risk his life for mine. He saved my life more times than I can count. She muttered. KAGOME. Harry looked at KAGOME. What did she mean by reincarnate? KAGOME burst into tears again. Please don't say that. Basically it means that wench has my Kikyo's soul. They look exactly alike. Inuyasha answered instead. Her soul? My brain hurts, he said, rubbing his temples. But that woman doesn't look a thing like KAGOME. Moroku and Sango now made themselves present. Lord Harry, you can tell the difference between the two, while Inuyasha cannot. I can too. The half-demon protested. All right then. Let's see what you guys can do. I'm seeing a test. All eyes turned to Sango as she finished her sentence. I'll do it. Kikyo answered first. She had confidence in her half-demon to choose her. KAGOME eyed her incarnate for a moment. I'm in. Great. Sango exclaimed. I have just the idea. Harry waited patiently with the others in the middle of the clearing. Apparently the test was to have KAGOME and this Kikyo person dress exactly alike, and he and the dog dude had to decide who was who. Harry sighed. How did he get himself into these messes? He studied the others around him. He already hated the one they called Inuyasha. He was a total jerk to KAGOME. And him. And from what he learned, this Kikyo person was dead? That made him confused. But why would Inuyasha want to love someone who was already dead? Harry's inner questions were interrupted as both girls stepped from their hidden spots. Both made no eye contact with anyone. Both had on the same outfit. But he recognized it. It was the outfit KAGOME wore for Halloween. Harry did the only thing he could think of to tell the difference. He looked into their eyes. He heard Inuyasha grunt. "I'll go first." He stated it with pride in his voice. Pretty confident he'd get it right. The demon stepped to the girl on the right and wrapped his arms around her and embraced her tightly. Harry fumed. "You get your dirty claws off of KAGOME." Harry was positive he heard the other girl, Kikyo, say the same thing. Change a few words here and there, of course. But nonetheless, Harry stomped over to Inuyasha and KAGOME and pushed Inuyasha as hard as he could. The Hanyu flexed his claws and growled. "What do you think you're doing, human?" He spat at the word as if disgusted. "Keeping you away from KAGOME. The least you could do is notice the difference between the living and the dead." He looked at KAGOME and smiled. She smiled back. Inuyasha glared at the wizard and sniffed the air. His eyes widened in realization. "You aren't Kikyo." He looked at KAGOME and then Kikyo. She had an arrow drawn and pointed at him. "Burn in hell, Inuyasha. I'll meet you there." She shot the arrow and it struck Inuyasha in the shoulder. He roared with pain. "Bitch, I know I am." Inuyasha brought his claws down through her clay body as she used her energy and purified the demon. Both were destroyed. The other four replayed what happened in their minds. Okay. Harry was the first to come to his senses. He looked at KAGOME. She stood staring at the spot where Kikyo once existed. There was a light more like an orb. In fact, it reminded him of when he was with Sirius and the Dementors of his 3rd year. But this time, the light rammed itself straight into KAGOME's body. He watched her topple to the ground unconscious. KAGOME slowly opened her eyes and groaned as a horrible pain in her chest arose. She carefully sat up and noticed Sango in the tiny hut with her. "Sango, so you're finally up. That's good. How long have I been out?" "Only a couple hours." She smiled. "Don't worry, you're fine." "What happened?" "Well, it seems from what Moroku told me, that the part of your soul Kikyo had returned to you when Inuyasha killed her. So that's what that light was." KAGOME attempted to stand up but fell back down, causing a loud thud. Suddenly the thatch door was ripped open by a frantic-looking Harry followed by Moroku. "What happened?" He looked down and noticed the now awake KAGOME. "You're awake." She saw him give a look of relief. KAGOME smiled and nodded. "You couldn't have been that worried about me?" "Of course I was." He grinned. "You're one of my best mates after all." "Wait a second." Sango looked at KAGOME. "You two have?" KAGOME blushed and shook her head ferociously. "Unu. Where we come from, mates mean something else. Like friends." "Uh-huh." Sango said, disbelieving. "What I could really use is a hot spring." "Now you're speaking my language." Grinned Sango. The two girls giggled and got up. Collecting some supplies, they went out of the tiny hut into the night forest. Harry continued to stare at the spot KAGOME was just at. A slight cough from Moroku brought him out of his stupor. "Seems you really like Lady KAGOME." Harry blushed. "I don't know what you're talking about." "I think you do. We'll see. How about I show you something?" Harry carefully looked at the monk. "I suppose." "What is it?" "You shall see, my young friend. You shall see." KAGOME and Sango slipped into the hot water. They sat together for a while until Sango broke the silence. "So what do you think of Harry?" "What do you mean, Sango? Do you like him like you did Inuyasha long ago?" KAGOME sighed. "I'm not sure yet. But enough about me. What about you and Moroku?" Sango blushed. "We've been together for a bit." KAGOME squealed. "It's about time. I thought you'd never get together." "Ouch. Moroku, where are we?" "Shoo. Lord Harry, you must be quiet." Harry winced as he scraped his arm on yet another thorn. He continued to follow Moroku through the many trees and bushes until he suddenly stopped. Moroku motioned for him to come closer as he spread 2 bushes apart. Harry gasped. "Moroku, you pervert." The monk clamped a hand around Harry's mouth. "Now, Lord Harry, you must understand a man's needs. You have them yourselves. Now this is an opportunity for you to see your dear KAGOME and for me to see both." Harry felt himself boil with anger towards the monk. How could he and KAGOME be friends? And yet, as he watched KAGOME talk and laugh with the other girl Sango like he'd never seen her do at Hogwarts. Both Harry and Moroku's eyes widened as they felt themselves slip from their safe hiding spots. They both rolled down the hill until they landed in front of the 2 girls at the hot spring. Kagome and Sango looked at the two boys and screamed. "What are you two doing here, you perverts?" yelled Sango. "I expected this from Moroku, but you Harry?" Kagome quickly grabbed a towel and wrapped herself in it. "I can't believe you." Harry blushed. "It's not what you think. Honestly, Arg, let me guess. You're gonna pin the blame on Moroku, aren't you? You'll say." Suddenly a flash disturbed the quarrel. When Sango and Moroku unshielded their eyes, they were both gone. "You had no idea where he was taking you, weren't you?" "Kagome, I swear I'm innocent, just let me explain." "Why should I?" Ahem. The sound interrupted the quarreling too. They looked up to notice that they were in the middle of the great hall. Both Kagome and Harry blushed. "Well, this is an awkward situation," Harry stated. Suddenly the great hall doors burst open. Standing there was Professor S, Hermione, and Ron. Professor S was the first to talk. "So this is where the summoning spell brought them," Kagome fumed. "Summoning spell? Shippo, what were you thinking? You couldn't have picked a worse time." "Sorry, Kagome. I didn't know you'd be in the middle of something." "Arg, it's not what you think. Honestly, where have I heard that before?" muttered Harry. "Yeah, well, I heard that you can't do review responses, so I'm gonna play it safe. Also, this chapter is going to take place a week after the last one. I have to wrap up their 6th year. Will she be able to complete the task that was given to her long ago? The stars touch everyone's heart." "Kagome, you can't be serious. You can't exploit yourself like that." "Well, believe it, Hermione. I have to do what I have to do. Besides, everyone needs to know about him." "But like that? When will it come out anyway?" "Sometime over the summer, I think." "Over the summer? So you're gonna have to come back to school to all this talk? I suppose that Hey guys." Hermione and Kagome turned towards Harry's sudden greeting. Kagome cast a sudden warning glance and Hermione nodded her head. Harry watched the two's actions and raised an eyebrow. Hermione noticed this. "Oh, hello, Harry." "Hey, Hermione." Kagome. Kagome just folded her arms across her chest and gave a soft humph. Come on, Kagome, you have to talk to me at one point or another. I don't have to do anything. And talking to you definitely isn't on my list. It's been a week since the Great Hall thing, and you know it wasn't my fault." Kagome turned around and glared at Harry. "You think this is about that? I'm still mad at you for everything else you've said and done to me." "What? But I thought that was over." "Well, think again. How could you think I could just forgive you after the bathroom incident, and then you took out my heart and stomped on it? I hate you. But how was I supposed to know that you had gone through all that stuff with that demon guy?" "Well, maybe you shouldn't assume. 'Cause now you've made an ass out of you and me." Kagome quickly stomped off with Hermione following behind her. Harry stood there in the hall. She was right, he shouldn't have assumed. He automatically had taken Cho's side and accused her of no love life without talking to her at all. Harry was brought out of his thinking trance by the sound of the bell signaling classes. Harry groaned. Today was the last day of potions and he wasn't there. Harry ran into the potions chamber, slamming the door open. He heard the Slytherins snicker and some of the Gryffindors groaned. He watched Snape smirk as he stood up. Well, look who's decided to join us. I take it you have some sort of excuse?" Harry glanced at Kagome, who was acting as if she took no notice of his being there. "No, I have no excuse." Harry walked over towards his cauldron and sat down next to Ron. "Well, that's a shame. But that will be 50 points from Gryffindor." Snape grinned, expecting the boy who lived to argue back. But he got no argument. Harry just didn't feel like defending himself. Snape frowned. What fun was it to torment students when they didn't argue back so that he could just make them even more upset? He glared at the young wizard in frustration for ruining his morning. "Since it is our last time together for the year, I want you to make any potion you want. But you will be demonstrating what it does at the end of class. Now get to work and be silent." Harry flipped through his potions book. Maybe there would be a potion for turning yourself invisible. But he had no luck on such a potion. Instead, he decided on a potion that made you float in the air. Gathering the items he needed, he quickly began his potion. He quickly glanced at Kagome again, who currently had a cauldron that was giving off purple smoke. Sighing, he continued his work. After adding his many ingredients, he began to stir his potion clockwise like the instructions said to. As he stirred, he saw a pale white hand throw something into his potion, causing it to bubble and turn a bad shade of purple. Harry turned to the smirking Malfoy. Malfoy, he seethed. Well, Potter, it seems you've messed up your potion once again. I messed it up? You're the one throwing things into it. Draco was about to respond again before Professor Snape walked over towards the two of them. What is the meaning of this? I said to be silent. Malfoy's throwing things into my cauldron. Harry instantly blurted out the problem, hoping that Snape might be able to do something about it. Now, Potter, that would be impossible. Students aren't allowed to tamper with other students' work. So stop playing tattletale and get back to work. Harry felt himself boil with rage inside as Snape strutted off towards his desk and Malfoy continued to smirk behind him. He felt his hands clench at his side. It was times like this that even the Dursleys' house would be better than this. He quickly glanced at the clock on the wall. He had 5 minutes left until demonstration time. Hopefully the results won't be too bad. Thank you, Longbottom, Snape said sarcastically as he marked yet another failure in his grade book and dusting the ashes off his desk. A smiling, slightly burnt Neville scurried over to his seat and quickly sat down. Next up, Higurashi. KAGOME quickly made her way to the front of the room with a flask full of a silvery liquid. Smiling, she quickly opened it up. By the look on your face you could tell she was proud of it. Bringing the flask to her lips, she swallowed the liquid in one gulp. Suddenly a slight glow began to appear around her. Harry couldn't help but stare at her. She looked angelic with that glow around her. KAGOME caught his stare and instantly blushed. He smiled. God, she looked beautiful like that. Harry mentally slapped himself. You have a girlfriend, was the mantra he chanted in his head. Besides, it was just a compliment to his friend. That was it. Thank you, Miss Higurashi. You, unlike most of these students, have passes. Now, Mr. Potter, you're up. Harry gulped as he looked at his flask of potion. What was supposed to be an emerald green was now a dark purple. He slowly made his way to the front of the classroom. Well, it seems like Mr. Potter has already failed. Looks like you screwed up the floating potion. But oh well. Go ahead and show us in case I'm wrong. Harry quickly looked at the flask one last time before he slowly drank down the potion. At first he didn't feel anything. It was as if nothing happened. Suddenly he felt his whole body go numb and could no longer hold himself up. He fell to the ground in a heap. Harry, KAGOME, Ron, and Hermione shouted their best friend's name. KAGOME ran to the front of the classroom and kneeled down next to him. Snape smirked. Another F then, Potter? Try to follow instructions next time. A growl erupted from KAGOME's throat and she stood up. Snape, you bastard! Most of the class gasped at her sudden outburst. But she didn't care. You knew what was going to happen and you still made him drink it. Snape glared at the girl. It's not my fault he messed up his potion. KAGOME returned the glare. No, but it is your fault he's on the ground right now. You made him drink the potion. Miss Higurashi, I would suggest sitting down this instant before I give you detention for your outbursts. Well, I suggest that you find a way to help Harry before I shove your wand up your ass. Harry was able to shift his head and look at the young Miko. He didn't know if it was because her potion hadn't worn off yet or what, but she looked stunning standing there telling Snape off. He saw Snape falter in his glare. Fine, but I will not forget this, Miss Higurashi. I wouldn't expect anything less. Snape reached in his desk and pulled out a small pill. He held it out in his hand to KAGOME. Give it to him. KAGOME snatched the pill and pushed it into Harry's mouth. A look of disgust spread across his face and he sat up. That tasted horrible, he said, sticking out his tongue. KAGOME smiled and knocked Harry back to the ground with a hug. I take it you're not mad at me anymore? Well, when you think something is wrong with your best friend. An interrupting cough came from the potions teacher. I hate to interrupt your moment, but I'd like to say 150 points from Gryffindor. 50 for Harry's lousy potion that disrupted my class, and 100 for Miss Higurashi's rude outbursts. Jerk, KAGOME whispered just loud enough for Harry to hear. He chuckled as the two made their ways back to their seats. She quickly plopped down in her chair and leaned back in it. She really hated this class. The bell suddenly rang and everyone jumped from their seats and practically ran out of the classroom. Harry, Ron, KAGOME, and Hermione soon met up in the hall. "So, next is our last class with Professor S," stated Hermione. "Yeah, I know," KAGOME said sadly. She didn't know when the next time she'd be able to see her Kitsune kid again. She'd miss him so much. "It's not like it's the end of the world. He's just a teacher," said Ron. He still didn't know about her what her relationship to Shippo was. But neither did Harry. All Harry knew was that Professor S was a demon. That's all he probably needed to know for now. The group trudged into class and took their seats. They waited as one by one others came filing into the classroom talking about random things. Some girls discussing how sad it was that it would be their last class with the still mysterious Professor S. KAGOME rolled her eyes. She wondered what they would say if they knew he was a demon. Professor S slowly walked into the classroom. "Well, class," he started, "since today is our last chance to be together, I've decided to answer any questions they wanted to know about the class or me." Many hands rose from the students as he finished the statement. He pointed at Draco. Smirking, he stood up. "What is your real name?" I thought that might be the first question. "My name is Shippo." "Shippo? What kind of name is that?" "Well, Mr. Malfoy, if just happens to be the one my parents gave me." Flushing, Draco quickly sat down. Hermione suddenly shot her hand up and he smiled. "Yes, Miss Granger? I was wondering if you would be teaching here next year." "Actually, I will not." Many cries came from the girls in the classroom, and shouts of "Why?" erupted throughout the room. Sighing, he began his answer. "I have 2 reasons, actually. One, as some of my students know," he said, looking at KAGOME, Harry, and Hermione, "I am a demon." Gasps erupted from the room, and whispers filled everyone's ears. Knowing Shippo could hear them, she giggled. He looked at her in a pleading way and tried to drown at the noise by covering his sensitive ears. "I'm not the teacher," she whispered low enough for him to hear her. He groaned and put his hands in the air. "Be quiet," he shouted. "Demons do have sensitive ears." The students quickly shut their mouths. "Now for my second reason. I wouldn't want to break you defense against the dark arts teacher chain now, would I?" Mutters began to circulate around the room again. That meant they would once again have to find a defense against the dark arts teacher. They wondered what kind of teacher they would get next year. After all, they had a demon for a teacher this year. Lavender slowly put her hand up and Shippo pointed to her. She started with a blush. "Can you show us your demon form?" Shippo grinned and glanced at KAGOME, who simply shrugged. In the blink of an eye, his human appearance dropped, revealing a handsome fox demon. His nails turned to claws and teeth to fangs. His hair grew longer than it already was, and his eyes turned an emerald green. His tail began to sway back and forth behind him as he glanced at the shocked faces. Many of the girls oed and aed at Shippo's demon form. Whispers of how cute he looked spread throughout the room. He grinned again and turned to KAGOME. "And you said they'd freak out." KAGOME rolled her eyes and glanced at Harry. He had his mouth hanging open and he stared wide-eyed at Shippo. She forgot this would have been the first time for him seeing his demon features. "Wait a minute." The class was disturbed surprisingly by Ron. He stood up and glanced between KAGOME and their defense against the dark arts teacher. "What I want to know is what exactly your relationship to KAGOME is. You claim to be just friends, but you two seem to get along too well." "Well," Shippo began. "Shippo," she said warningly, "don't say anything. Come on, Kags, they're gonna find out eventually." "Well, they can wait until then." "Come on, Kags." Harry interrupted the conversation. "Some of us would like to know. We are all friends here after all." "Harry!" Hermione shouted. "How could he say something like that? Not all of us are." KAGOME muttered under her breath. "Besides, I don't want you to know yet." Harry first glared at KAGOME, but stopped eventually. He didn't need another fight with KAGOME. If she wanted to tell him another time, she could. He smiled at her, and surprised she smiled back. She could feel it. Something had changed between them. She wasn't quite sure what yet, but something had changed. He wasn't his easy-to-anger self at all. He was actually caring about how she was feeling and understanding. KAGOME sighed. "Guys are so confusing." A young girl with raven black hair growled. "He was late. What was taking him so long?" She slowly walked down the corridors of Hogwarts towards the Great Hall for dinner. Dumbass, father. She muttered to herself, her arms crossed in anger. Have to type a chapter for my other story. And it's funny. I realized after I typed it that I typed it like my other story. But oh well. Please read and review. Twanks. TTFN. Here is the next chapter. This is the final chapter of this story. Oh yes, and thank you for the wonderful reviews. They brightened my day. Oh, and sorry for the long wait, guys. I just have so much going on in my life right now. It's not even funny. Will she be able to complete the task that was given to her long ago? The stars touch everyone's hearts. Dinner time. A place where one can relax and eat all they want after a long day of classes. Some would call it the best time of the day. Others would call it the most revolting. Hermione and KAGOME watched as Ron and Harry gorged themselves with food, grabbing chicken leg after chicken leg and scoop of mashed potatoes after another. KAGOME felt her eye begin to twitch. She survived a year of this. Just as Harry stuffed another chicken leg in his mouth, he was attacked from behind with a death grip around the neck. "Oh, Harry darling," his attacker exclaimed. "Can you believe this is our last night here together?" Harry's face began to turn pale as he gasped for air. Cho removed her grip and looked at him. "Darling?" He began coughing. "What was wrong?" "Chicken bones can be quite evil when they are lodged in your throat." KAGOME gasped and ran to Harry. Cho glared at her as she tried to help save Harry. KAGOME quickly slapped him with all her might, causing him to dislodge the evil bone of the chicken and making him able to breathe again. "Thanks, Kag. Don't know what I would have done without you." Harry smiled at her, causing her to blush. Cho growled and kicked her out of the way and immediately took her place, snuggling up with her Harry and making sure he was okay. "And what about our Miko? Floor. Have you met KAGOME?" KAGOME herself growled and picked herself up. She headed up towards the common room. She heard a voice call from her from behind. "KAGOME, where are you going?" Hermione asked. "To finish packing my stuff. We leave tomorrow morning and I'm not ready yet." Hermione simply nodded and let her on her way. She was glad too. All she wanted right now was to be alone. She slowly made her way upstairs and muttered the password, "Pygmy Puff," to the fat lady in the portrait. The portrait quickly closed after she stepped through. There was no one in the common room. Of course they were all downstairs eating at the final feast of the year. KAGOME sighed. There was always another woman for every man she loved. Inuyasha had chosen Kikyo and Harry had Cho. Yes, she admitted it. She was in love with the boy who lived. But this girl Cho was in the way. 3 words to describe Cho: two-faced bitch. KAGOME swore up and down on her life that she was out to get her. But for what possible reason? Oh well, KAGOME shrugged it off. What could that simple witch do to our little Miko after all? Carefully she reached into her bag and pulled out the Shurkan no Tama and gently put it around her neck. What am I going to do with this thing? She wondered aloud to herself. Suddenly she felt a small twang in the back of her head. A sensation she hadn't felt since she returned from the feudal era. The sensation of demons. She whispered to herself. She grabbed her weapons and was out of the girls' dormitory in a flash. Harry sighed. He wished his best friend and his girlfriend would get along. Maybe even for a few seconds if possible. He looked at Professor S, or shall we say Shippo. He still didn't understand what connection KAGOME could have with him. Harry watched curiously as Shippo suddenly stood up with a fearful expression on his face. He carefully walked over to Dumbledore and whispered something in his ear, only to make his eyes widen with fear as well. Harry turned to Ron and Hermione, who apparently has witnessed the whole thing as well. Cho was still latched on to Harry and nuzzling herself into his arm. Suddenly the great hall doors flew open and in came KAGOME running between the tables. She had a bow in hand with quivers on her back and a sword was strapped to her side. All eyes watched as she ran as fast as she could to the head table. "Shippo, Headmaster Dumbledore, we know," they said simultaneously. Dumbledore slowly got up and raised a hand, signaling the chattering great hall to become quiet. One by one the voices of the young witches and wizards died down and all eyes rested on the great wizard. "Ladies and gentlemen, your attention please. It seems we have some unwanted visitors coming towards Hogwarts." This is no doubt an attack. And not just any attack, this is a demon attack. But prepare yourself, because their leader is none other than Voldemort himself. Many gasps were heard throughout the Great Hall as the chattering started up again. Demons? Was Dumbledore serious? Demons were attacking Hogwarts? And Voldemort was behind it all? There was no way this was happening. Harry began to wonder if his Dada class would actually be putting their sword-fighting skills to the test. Wait a second, Harry whispered aloud. Where was their own demon of the school? He was at the front of the hall just a second ago, and as if on cue, in came the very fast demon with armloads of swords and weapons. Dropping them on the floor, many of the teachers rushed forward to examine and pick out their own swords. It seemed they too had been practicing. Dumbledore continued, I want all first years in the very back, then the second years and the third years, and so on. The teachers will be at the front, with Professor S near the foremost front, and he glanced at Shippo and KAGOME, who both nodded silently. And KAGOME leading us all. What? Most of the students shouted in unison, with Harry, Ron, and Hermione being the loudest. Professor, you can't be serious. Hermione half yelled and complained towards the headmaster. Hermione, KAGOME herself requested that if anything like this were to happen, she would be the lead, and that she would be in charge. Dumbledore explained calmly. But Professor, Hermione whispered in tears. Don't worry, Hermione. KAGOME placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. Remember the adventures I told you about? I'm quite capable of taking care of myself. Prove to me that you can, she said with a smile on her face. With that, she quickly made her way to the front of the defensive line. It's all right. You'll be fine. You've dealt with plenty of demons in the past. KAGOME continued to whisper encouragement to herself. She was confident when she said all of that encouraging stuff to Hermione. But now she was having second thoughts. KAGOME suddenly felt herself jump when a clawed hand rested itself on her shoulder. Turning around, she faced none other than her own son. Shippo, don't scare me like that. We are under a demon attack, you know. I know. I just want to make sure you'll be okay. Shippo gave her a warm smile. I don't want anything to happen to you. It'll be okay. You know, I'll always be there for you, and I won't let anything happen to you. You are my one and only son after all. Shippo felt his cheeks heat up in a blush. Ah, Mom. You're embarrassing me. It was almost as if on cue that when she stepped to the front of the battlefront, a crash was heard at the front of the castle. The demons had broken in. A horde of them had broken through the 3-foot-thick walls of concrete and were heading as fast as they could to where they sensed humans. In the Great Hall, KAGOME quickly notched an arrow towards the entrance doors to the Great Hall. Many of the students noticed her movement and began to whisper behind her. But as the giant doors flew open, she released the arrow. A blue glow appeared around the arrow and flew into the crowd of demons, literally disintegrating whatever went into the arrow's path. By the time it struck the back wall, there was a large hole in the demon horde where the arrow went through. I see you haven't lost your touch, Miko. A cynical voice called from above the demons. Voldemort, muttered Harry Potter. Naraku, the priestess seethed out. Why are you here? You should know by now. A grin spread out across the Hanyo's face. I want the jewel. The Shirkan no Tama. You know you'll never get it. KAGOME pulled out the jewel that hung around her neck as if to tease Naraku. He stared at it, lusting for the power it held. KAGOME smirked. The half-demon growled at her. Attack. The single word froze in midair while the students stood still and took it in. Was this freak really about to attack them? Were they going to die that day by the hands of malevolent demons? KAGOME drew her katana as the teachers drew weapons of their own. Harry, Ron, and a few of the other Dada students stepped forward with weapons as well. They vowed to protect each and every one of the students that stood behind them. And as the demons continued to rush forward at them, they readied their weapons for a battle. Harry felt his blade slice through demon after demon. There were thousands of these monsters, and they never stopped coming. Looks like those classes came in handy after all, he muttered to himself. He continued to swing his blade through the creatures until he felt a pain of his own. Wincing, he looked down at his side and he saw 3 claw marks that dug into his right side. In front of him stood a giant lizard. He was just hit by a lizard demon? The yokai stood grinning at the boy, who lived with its tail swishing side by side behind him. He merely stood staring at him as Harry stumbled to make his way back up to his feet. The demon was about to attack again when from out of nowhere a sword stabbed itself through its head and was now dangerously pointed at Harry through the demon. What the? And as the sword released its victim, it revealed KAGOME wielding it. I hate lizards, she muttered aloud to herself. Pesky little buggers, aren't they? KAGOME smiled and offered him a hand up. Harry simply smiled back and whispered a quick thank you to her. It's no problem. KAGOME then placed both her hands over Harry's right wound, and a light started to emit from her hands. The odd part was that wound quickly was healed. How in the bloody hell did you do that? He questioned her. Shrugging it off as nothing, she replied, come with the job. And she quickly ran off to return to the fighting. Harry couldn't help but stare after her as she skipped off. KAGOME launched another arrow that burned the remaining demons into nothing but a pile of ash. She quickly looked around the great hall. There was no way that Naraku had gotten himself killed. But the question was, where is he? A small applause erupted from behind where she stood. Very good, Miko. You seem to have improved since our last encounter. And you seem to be just as big of a coward as you used to be. KAGOME smiled at herself. Naraku Voldemort score, 0 KAGOME, 1. He frowned down at her. This isn't over yet, priestess. I will get the jewel next time and there's nothing you can do to stop me. The problem with that theory is that there will be no next time. You'll never be able to make it in here again. It's beyond me how you were able to get in this time. That was no problem at all. I just had my daughter do the dirty work for me. Daughter? KAGOME was confused. Did this demon just say he had a daughter at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry? Whispers erupted from the crowd of students that stood behind her asking the same thing. Who is your daughter? Do you honestly think I would reveal that? You must be crazy. Perhaps all that magic has gotten to your head. Naraku grinned. Until next time, priestess. And Naraku vanished into the darkness without another word. Naraku, get back here. KAGOME yelled out with anger. Tears slowly ran down her face. He attacked again and she was still unable to stop him. People were hurt yet again because of her. KAGOME jumped as she felt a hand rest on her shoulder. She turned around to face a smiling Harry. Good job, KAGOME. Her cheeks heat up in a blush. Thanks. She managed to stutter out. She smiled back at him when suddenly, Cho Chang had managed to push her way through the crowd of still awestruck students and push KAGOME out of the way. Oh, Harry, you're not hurt, are you? I don't know what I would have done if I lost both you and Cedric. Tears were streaming down her face. KAGOME looked up in time to see his eyes soften at the worried expression on Cho's face. He quickly pulled her into a warm embrace. KAGOME could feel a monster of jealousy ripping away at her from within. But what could she do? Shippo quickly made his way over. He appeared to be uninjured minus a few scratches here and there. Are you alright, Kags? KAGOME smiled at him. I'm fine, Shippo. Just fine. She stared up at the stars that twinkled above her in the clear night sky through the giant hole in the roof. Perhaps things will get better. She wondered aloud to herself as a star shot by overhead. Harry and Ron quickly pushed their way through the great crowd that surrounded itself by the Hogwarts Express that was waiting to take them all home. As they made their way on board, they were able to find an empty compartment where he, Ron, Hermione, and KAGOME could all sit and enjoy the ride home. Harry glanced out the window and saw KAGOME hug onto Shippo with a smile on her face. He could feel himself getting angry with jealousy again. Don't worry, he thought. She said it was nothing. He watched as she skipped off to join Hermione, and it wasn't too much longer until the two opened the compartment door and sat down. So, Harry began nonchalantly, you two promised to write each other over the summer? Every day. KAGOME chirped in with a smile on her face. After that, the train ride was silent. There was nothing to say or be said. The events that transpired last night had still left them all pretty shocked. And they had yet to discuss the events at all. Voldemort was Naraku, or Naraku was Voldemort. It didn't much matter. What did was that he was an even bigger threat now to the wizarding world if he had demons on his side. Harry sighed. Before they all knew it, the train whistle blew, signaling their arrival to the King's Cross station in London. As the train slowed to a halt, the four began to gather their things. They quickly got off the train and made it through the barrier safe and sound. Ronald, Ginny, Mrs. Weasley's voice boomed through the crowd of people in the station. Bye guys. They muttered and ran off towards their mother. Hermione quickly spotted her mother and ran off, making them promise to write her over the long and boring summer. This left the boy who lived alone with the Miko. So you're definitely all right then? KAGOME asked him. I would kill myself if I found out later that you were actually hurt. I'm fine, thanks. KAGOME, shouted a little boy from across the station. She looked up at Harry. That's my brother. Guess I have to leave. She watched Harry simply nod his head. Smiling, she went and pulled him into a long embrace. Promise to write me this summer, all right? Promise. He smiled back at her. With a quick peck on the cheek, she ran off with her family, leaving quite the red Harry behind. When he finally was able to pull himself together, he couldn't help but grin. He was just kissed on the cheek by another girl. A very cute girl. Sweet. He muttered aloud to himself, and quickly walked out of the station, where he saw his Uncle Vernon waiting with the car door open already. Mr. Dursley grunted as Harry placed his things in the trunk of the car. This was your last year, right, boy? Harry sighed. No, Uncle Vernon. This was my 6th year, not my 7th. Well, he started, we'll see if I decide to take you back next year. Whatever you say, Uncle Vernon, he said as he climbed into the back of the hot car. He glanced out of the window to see KAGOME put her owl, Comet, into the back of her mother's car. Whatever you say, and without another word, the car drove off towards Privet Drive, where Harry Potter would soon be spending a most interesting summer vacation. Anyway, I hope you enjoy the sequel, so go look it up now and read it. Thank you for reading this story.